Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sephin.
Good afternoon, Varun. Okay, welcome to your new academic term. And there are a few new students who have joined. So we will start off with a quick round of introduction, and then we will continue in with the lecture. So, Vihari, you can start off with your introduction, and then Aaron, you can start off. Aaron, Benny. If you remember, I told you there will be multiple Aarons this time, right? So you can start off with your introduction after Vihari goes on with his introduction and his batch's introduction. Okay. All right, Aaron, Benny. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Vihari, go
Hi
ahead.
everyone. Hi everyone. This is Vihari. I'm from Hyderabad. So I'm a strength and conditioning and high performance consultant. Now pursuing masters from UCAM High Performance Strength and Conditioning. So I deal with multidisciplinary athletes, and I also worked in Chennai for the past 4 years in primal patterns. That's about me. Thank you.
Nice. Okay. Bharat, would you like to? Now, okay, Varun, I saw you unmuting. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi all. I'm Varun here. So I'm from Chennai. So I'm a strength and conditioning coach for past 5 6 years. So I finished my CSCS and I'm currently working with the Tamil Nadu Cricket Association here in Chennai. I'm glad to be here with the part of your camp. Thank you.
Okay. Uh, Thank you for the introduction, Varun. Going forward with, it would be also good if you could show your wonderful faces to especially to the new joinees, so that they can understand who is behind the voice. All right, so that's Vihari, that's Varun, and who would like to go ahead next? Raghavendra or anyone else?
I am Bharat. I'm from Chennai. I was a professional cricketer. I've been in this field for the last 4 5 years as a strength and conditioning coach. I train one of the cricket teams in first division cricket teams in Chennai right now. Uh, yeah, I finished my CSAS as well. Uh, Enjoying my time in UCAM. Looking forward to the next semester.
All right, thank you, Bharat. Raghavendra, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Raghavendra from Hyderabad. I'm a professional track and field athlete, and I'm currently working in High Performance Center in Assam as strength and conditioning coach, dealing with swimming and taekwondo athletes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead. In random, you guys can go ahead and introduce yourself. Aaron, I can see you already on the screen, so you can start off after that. Dhananjay, why don't you follow up right after Aaron?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aaron. I'm currently working in Bangalore. I'm basically from Kerala, and I'm currently working in health and fitness industry right now in terms of general population, and slowly try to get into strength and conditioning in terms of sports. That's why this particular course from UCA. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi, hi. This is Tanan, sports management. Currently not involved in sports now, but would like to get into H&C. Thank you.
All right. We lost you for a brief second then, Dhananjay. If you could just reiterate your initial few sentences.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a sports management graduate looking to get into high performance sports. So I think this is my entry step towards strength and conditioning. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Suraj, hi, nice to meet you. Would you like to introduce yourself? Suraj, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Mm-mm. No, no. Why don't you give your audio check another try? We'll circle back to you. Okay. All right. Okay.
Hi, Sephin, Divakar.
Hello, Divakar. Please.
Hi, Sephin. Yeah. Hi, I'm Divakar. I'm from Chennai now. I'm currently working in Bangalore. I'm a professional weightlifter. So, I'm currently working SNC course for a general population, and then I'm going to move to uh, high performance strength and conditioning coach. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Divakar. Okay. All right. I see a couple of names. I'll just call them out. Aparna Bane. If you are on screen, we would be happy to hear from you, see you.
Hello everyone. My name is Aparna and I'm from Mumbai. I have completed my bachelor's in sports science and I'm a professional badminton player as well. So looking forward to meet everyone and yeah.
Okay, great. Aparna, bachelor's in sports science from?
Somaya Vidya, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you're still pursuing your, time as a badminton player?
Yes sir, I'm actually practicing for badminton as well. So I'm a
Okay,
national level player.
that's wonderful. Okay, awesome. All right, Laksh Gupta, it would be good if you could also unmute, introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Laksh. I'm from Pune. I have been a strength and conditioning coach for past 4 years now, and I've been working with the Maharashtra State Cricket Association for the last 3 years with the under 19 team. So yeah, here for more knowledge and get the masters done.
Wonderful. Laksh, so any certifications, any parallel degrees in relation to sports science? Strength and
Not degrees, but I've done CSCS. I have done ASCA level 1. I have passed the BCCI level 1 strength and conditioning exam also. So yeah, I'll be giving the level 2 BCCI exam this June, means in coming few days.
Okay,
Looking forward
okay.
to that too. Yeah.
All right. Good to hear. Nice to meet you, Laksh. Tracy, Sam.
Hello everyone, my name is Tracy and I did my bachelor's in physiotherapy from Manipal, and I'm planning to, additional to my rehabilitation, I wanted to add on more into an SNC, into a high performance sport. So I plan to join this course, and I'm working in Mumbai in a clinic as well as with a football club in Mumbai itself as a sports physiotherapist, and as well I play football as well.
Okay. All right. Where are you working at currently, Tracy?
I'm working in Mumbai itself in a clinic, in a sports clinic, Pepto Motion.
Okay. I am from Mumbai, so if it's a
Oh,
familiar name, I'm checking in for that.
okay. Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay. Is it in the central line of Mumbai or towards the?
Basically in Thane, and with the football club, I'm working in Matula.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Your bachelor's in physiotherapy was from
Manipal University. KSM.
Manipal University. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Suraj, what about you? Is things better at your end now?
Am I audible, sir, right now?
Now you are. Glad to hear your voice.
Yes. My headphone was not working, sir. That was the reason. Sorry.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm from Kerala. Currently, I'm in Bangalore as a freelancing strength and conditioning coach. Just started 1 or 2 years before. Before that, I was a personal trainer in Gold's Gym and other local gyms. So I just shifting my career to strength and conditioning. Right now, I'm managing freelancing with my general population and gradually changing to strength and conditioning. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's wonderful, Suraj. Any certifications, SNC
So
certification?
I did. I'm from K11 School of Fitness Science. Like
Okay.
diploma, I did
and special population also I did. NACS I cleared theory part, but unfortunately practical remains. So by June next month I will be clearing. I'm
All
planning
right.
to reattempt the test again.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Glad to meet you, Suraj.
Yes.
All right. Srishti Arun. Okay. While we wait in on Srishti Arun to unmute and start off with an introduction, we'll go to Vivin Andrews. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Vivin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Good
Go,
afternoon,
Vivin.
all. I am from Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, and I am a architect by profession, and I play cricket professionally. And I own a gym here, so I am coming into this field as a health and conditioning coach. And I hope you can bring the best out of me, and I can carry forward in this career. Yeah.
I'm sure it will be. All right. So,
Okay.
Vivin, any previous sports science or any other strength and conditioning degrees,
No,
certifications,
no,
anything of that sort?
no. I just play and I just own a gym, so I am into training people for fitness, and I
Good.
own a school as well. So I train people and I use. I'm a dietitian also, but I don't have any certification. I have studied, but I
Hmm.
don't have any authorized certification.
All right. All right. No problem. So, Vivin, you said you're a dietitian. Any particular programs which you have attended, any certification which you have followed in for that?
I just used like I don't remember the website, but I
Uh-huh.
just enrolled in that course and I just finished it. I think it's course or some course like that. It's not a
Okay.
upload
Right.
certification
No
or something.
problem. No problem. It's just for me to understand the group of students and accordingly shape up my lecture so that everyone could be on the same page. Yeah,
Yeah,
no problem.
sure. Thank you.
Glad to have come across you, Vivin.
Thank you.
We'll circle back to you, Srishti, if you can unmute yourself and yeah. Hello, Srishti.
Am I audible now?
Now you are, yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm from Chennai. Professionally, I used to do roller skating. I've represented the country in the 2010 Asian Games. Apart from that, I've been into sports a lot. Right now, I am playing pickleball, so I'm trying to take it professionally. Also, I have a lot of interest in SNC, so I thought UCOM would be the right entry for me. I'm also learning things in parallel so that I can learn this year and also apply. Really looking forward to learning with you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Srishti. Omkar, we would like to have a quick round of introduction. We are going ahead with a circle of introduction from each and every student. It would be good if you could also unmute yourself, switch on your camera also if possible, and just state out where you're from, your relevant background in the field of sports science, any certifications, degrees if you have.
Hello everyone. Basically, I'm a biomedical engineer by profession. So currently, I'm working at Homeopathy Cancer Hospital in Sangrur as a scientific officer. And basically, in our engineering, we basically had subjects of biomechanics and everything. But the application part was basically on devices. This time, I expect that the application part will be on the body. So I'll get to learn a lot about that, and I will get to apply on that because applied on myself. See, because I've been undergoing treatment for psoriasis since last 3 years,
Mhm.
and it has not alleviated and ever since. And so maybe strength and conditioning would be something that would help me in recovering faster and treating my body as a temple, basically, and applying all the techniques and also helping some students maybe down the line after we complete the course. And yeah, uh, just a pointer. I have approached Ranjit Bajaj sir here in Minerva Academy. Basically, to complete my practical courses here in Punjab itself. If I cannot travel in Mumbai or Bangalore, then maybe I can complete my practicals here in Minerva Academy. I don't know about the facilities there, but definitely we can manage something. That is what I feel.
Certainly, certainly. I'm glad you put it across in a very unique way, especially Srishti also coming from a engineering side of things. Am I correct, Srishti?
Yes, Sephin, that's right.
Yeah. So the way he put it is, did you happen to notice that? I really like the way Omkar put it. He mentioned that we could use the engineering now on the human body side of it. So
Yeah.
that's a very interesting way to look at it. And I'm sure there are fewer subjects which will get you towards that in specific. Biomechanics is one of those subjects which will start making you realize the human engineering and how you can be a good human engineer in the field of strength and conditioning and sports science. So that being said, I'm glad all of you are here in the meeting room. This group is cumulatively of three different batches. That's why we started off with one group's introduction first, where I started off with the name of Vihari. And then we have two Aarons. So just for the lack of confusion, I will be specific. Aaron Benny is from the previous batch, and Aaron Varghese. I'm pronouncing your name correctly, right? Aaron Varghese.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want us to, call you from a different, shorter version of Aaron Varghese, or would you like us to go ahead with Aaron Varghese itself?
Either way, it's fine, sir. Not an issue. As long as surname is being pronounced correctly. Because my Varghese is a bit unique. As you can see, there's a U in my Varghese.
Correct.
Other Varghese, like others who have the similar surname, they tend to not have a U in them.
Correct. I have a bit of connection towards Kerala, so I understand.
Yes, sir.
And that's why we have one Aaron Benny and the other one is Aaron Varghese. And all the others, welcome to your May academic term, your first lecture of this new academic term. Let me start off with an introduction of myself. My name is Sephin James. I am an exercise physiologist by profession. I did my sports and exercise physiology with a affiliation from Griffith University in Australia. This was done way back 2012, if you can understand that long back, where sports science within India was not even in its infancy. It was literally a dark phase. But there were few colleagues and back then my classmates who had a similar approach that sports in India will boom, and the sports science is something which requires a grave seriousness to look into as. And that's why the program started getting much more stronger with much more students in the upcoming batches. Like we had a bigger batch of juniors. Our seniors were single digits, and so was our batch. And then the juniors started getting into double digits and things like that. But then as soon as I finished this, I got a chance to work with AFMC, Armed Forces Medical College in Pune, where I worked very closely with Sports Authority of India. And back in the days when I was there, Abhinav Bindra was training in the AFMC, Sports Authority of India facility in Pune. So I could really work very closely with the SNC coaches there, the sports psychologists there, just get a rough hands-on approach on how Olympian is created in the process. And that was a unique experience. And since then on, my interest towards SNC has been on peak. And I've been doing a couple of programs where IUSCA, NSCA, and many other certifications just for my, satiety, just for my mental satiety. I've been doing that. And my interest primarily lied majorly towards, towards the management and teaching side of it. And that's how I immediately switched from the clinical or the hands-on training towards 2017, when FIFA came to India as their brand entry. By that time, I had already finished my sports management as well. So those of you who are from that of a background, I can relate to you as well very closely. So sports management was the ones I had done. I was working with ISL, Mumbai City Football Club, and many other such clubs from a medical managerial perspective. But when FIFA came, I officially taken up the role of medical management from the central, or as we call it, as the central line of control, where I was headquartered and I was helping different venues, different tournaments, different stadiums to prepare towards the FIFA level, that is the international level of performance of sports, and at the same time general well-being of attendees, or the footfall in the general words we call it. How do we cater to them? How do we prepare for them? All of a sudden, when this came, in addition to BCCI, it was a grave change. And since 2017, things have been changing. For those of you who have been following up with AIFF, you would know it was from 2019 onwards where FIFA invested huge amounts of money towards the grassroots development of football, and that's how AIFF, Sports Authority of India, Kalo India, and many other government subsidy bodies started developing the sports programs, especially football, within the country. So that's where my forte has been, and working with AFC, AIFF, FIFA lasted on for a long period of time, and it was in 2022 where I officially moved in over to complete teaching. So in between those times, I was freelancing, as I can say in a general terms, where I was teaching at the same time managing with the medical management roles. But 2022 onwards, it was a full-time teaching in. And few of you, especially not the latest batch, but the previous batches, Vihari and the batch, Aaron Benny and the batch, we got an opportunity to meet while I was again heading the UCAM Strength and Conditioning High Performance Sports Program in the last practical session, where we could meet, we could interact, and it was a good moment with you all. And now to the question which one of you asked before, Omkar, I guess your practical related discussions will be informed to you closer towards the end of the program, where you will be advised on how you can manage and how to compensate otherwise. So I'm hopeful that we could meet up once again on the practicals, and I will be able to guide you through. If not, probably another faculty who can be handed over so that they can teach you through. All right, so that's a brief introduction about me. Now, just laying across a couple of meeting decorum or meeting rules so that you all, especially for those of you who are joining in for the first time, can be made aware and can be facilitated with. This is going to be a long session. Do you know till what time we are going to be here sitting at this position?
Sadly, 6 p.m.
I'll skip the first part. It will be there till 6 p.m. So it's a long 4 hour of a session which we're going to have. That being said, those of you who are en route or who are outside of the home or a closed environment, those of you who are on the road especially, I will advise caution. If possible, try to settle in somewhere where you can actively listen and participate. A general habit of mine as part of the teaching is I would like to interact. So don't be alarmed if I call you at random and just ask of you to engage with me. Although that is the last of my habit, which I would naturally choose, but my preference would be just like how Bharat spontaneously unmuted and engaged. Similarly, I would be happy if you all could engage, because this session, this live session for a span of 4 hours, is designed in such a way that you can engage, interact, and learn. If it was supposed to be a monotonous or a single mono conversation, it could have been just a video which you could have looked into. But that's the last of an approach. So please be available. If you can keep your cameras on while the session is going on, even more better. If not, it's okay. And we will be having two primary breaks. As and when the flow of the session goes, we will take it in random, but it would be there for sure. So that will have you that will give across a time where you can go across for refreshments, relax, and then come back, and then we will continue till about 6 p.m. Okay. That being said, I don't know how many of you already have it. Probably for the next lecture or probably after the break, you can do this. grab a hold of water, tea, coffee, or anything which you need at your arm's reach, and keep it there so that you can continue with the session and engage and interact and learn at the same time. Okay. All right. I hope you all are ready to start off with the subject. Okay, great. And just another thumb rule, especially for the new joinees, the reaction button, which is second to the camera button, is something which you can widely use, just so that you can showcase that you're on the same page. If you can unmute and say that's good, otherwise maybe reactions like thumbs up, thumbs down if you didn't get that, or if you want me to repeat something, anything of that sort, just so that I could know you are actively engaged with me. All right. Okay, so once again, let me ask you this. I hope you're all ready to start off with the subject. Great, this looks better. Okay, the subject in hand is, yes, Aaron Varghese. All right, okay.
That was by mistake, sir. Sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah, just a correction and an encouragement. It would be good if you could call me by my name, which is Sephin. I didn't get the honors by the honoraries or the dignitaries yet to be called as a sir. I believe the sirship is something which will be earned either by Queen when they used to keep the sword and bestow that title, or else probably double PhDs and things like that, which give you that degree. So please call me by my first name. It would be great. Okay, so coming back to the subject, exercise physiology. How many of you are new to this? That's my first question. How many of you are new to the subject, exercise physiology? All right. If nobody raises the hand, I will assume that you all are okay. Good. Chat box is another good option which you can use. Vivin Andrews, I hope you are adding on to Srishti as this being new, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay, great. Perfect. So we will get on with the subject. Just give me 1 second. Let me share my screen. Okay. I hope the screen is visible. Yes. All right. So let's start off with exercise physiology, first of all. Let's try and break this down, and I will try to keep it at a level where all of you can be on the same platform at all times, okay? Because we have a mix, because we have a combination of glad to have a physio with us, some of you who are into biomechanical aspect of it, some of you who are already working, majority of you who are already working professionals of strength and conditioning. But still, many a times, because I have been very closely associated with NSCA, CSCS might not actually get you into the depth of exercise physiology. So considering the whole lot of spectrum of good, bright students with me, I will try to keep it in a simple platform in such a way that everybody can delve into, can everybody can jump into. Okay, so there might be some repetitions, there might be some terminologies which might be new to you, unique to you, or probably even something which is a scratch in your head for you. Well, what do I mean by that is, you might have heard of this terminology but not able to pin it, not able to understand it immediately. So for those instances is where I would always advise strongly to keep lecture notes as a habit for all of your sessions. Okay, so you can probably scribble it down, because when you go back to your virtual campus, the presentation which you're seeing on the screen is something which you can definitely go and refer it to. One, Second is there would be live lectures. That means your live transcriptions are on. That will be given across as a summary of what the whole 4 hour session is. That is a gist of the 4 hour discussion which would have happened. And then obviously some other reading materials which I will suggest. So all this would be readily available to you so that you can go back and refer to. This is a habit which will help you in addition to the lecture note so that you can go back, learn, revise, and catch on to all the challenges which I just previously mentioned, whether it's a scratch in your brain or something which you're coming across quite new to, or something which needs a revision for. Okay, so first of all, human body, when we talk about that, there is human anatomy and human physiology. So human anatomy is more about, how the structure is, what the structure is made of, how does the structure function. Now when I say structure, I'm talking about the cellular and the visible structure aspect of it. It could be bones, muscles, all the way to the microscopic level of cellular function. Everything is what anatomy teaches. Physiology is, in addition, one more layer in addition to this, which will teach you about how these systems function independently and collaboratively, so that each of these functions could work as a unit towards the processing of a particular action of the body. For example, if you have to digest food, anatomy plus physiology will help you to understand how the digestive system is in its first place. Second is, how does food, right from taking the food into your hands, eating it, chewing, making a bolus, putting it through your esophagus, going to, so all the steps will get covered all the way towards digestion and excretion. So the whole entire system. So this is how the anatomy and physiology come into place. But today we are here to speak about a subject called as exercise physiology, which is one more step in addition to physiology. What do you think exercise physiology is? In your own words, if a couple of you could just unmute and put it into your own definitions, what do you mean by exercise physiology?
I think it's a study of understanding how the human body reacts to maybe physical stress or movements. Also, we can relate that to maybe neuromuscular adaptations or musculature adaptations.
Wonderful, great. Glad to hear that input, Aaron. Benny, who else?
Yeah, just adding on to that, it could be either acute or could be chronic. It could also test your cardiovascular, respiratory, or even the neural systems under stress or under exercise.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Glad that you're adding on to Aaron's point. Good. Anybody
So it
else?
is basically like how the
I
body
think
uses
it.
the energy.
All right, Varun, maybe you could go ahead first, and then Vihari after that. You.
So it is basically like how the body uses energy for the fundamental activities.
Okay, great, great. So you are now, that's a good definition, Varun. You are now defining physiology as a function, but if it has to be exercise and physiology, Vihari, would you like to, or anybody else would like to?
Yeah,
So
so
basically,
basically,
how
it's what.
Go ahead, Vihari. Aparna, you can follow right after.
So basically, it is what happens inside the body when we train and why exactly we are improving our training as well.
Okay, wonderful, great. Yes, Aparna.
so basically like how the body adapts and you know how the body adapts and reacts to the activities like during training.
Perfect. Okay. So, exercise physiology, in addition to the physiology, is physiology basically means how the system functions, how it would go through a process. But when we speak about exercise physiology, we are going to speak about human physiology, no doubt, but specific to exercise as an action or exercise as an activity. Okay. So, what would it mean? For example, I just gave you a previous example of digestion. But now, when we speak about exercise physiology, it would become specific to, for example, let's say sprinting, to, let's say, for example, cool down. What happens physiologically when your body is cooling down? Similarly, warm up. So now I'm getting into the specificity of exercise physiology. That's what the whole subject is about, and that is what the whole outcome of this subject is also going to be aligned towards. But all 5 units are going to get you into the depth of how each and every system, especially, primarily just because it's just 5 lectures, we will try and tap into the major systems of the body, not the entire systems, but we will tap into the major systems and how each of these systems work towards the exercise physiology and how adaptations happen. If at all the adaptations happen, how do we analyze these adaptations, test these adaptations, and how these adaptations are going to help us as future SNC coaches to train the athletes better, to work on the general population better, to understand the human body and optimize it. That's why this program is called as high performance. So an individual have come to you today, for example, with their performance at level 1. After training with you for, after say 6 months, their performance should not be at level 1 again. Do you agree with me on that? It has to be level 1 plus. Technically, level 1 plus 6 is what I would consider. You know why? Because they've been with you for 6 months. So they should be level 1 plus 6. All the other levels of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which I just spoke about, it need not be only a particular perspective, let's say strength perspective. It could be general well-being, general fitness, improve flexibility. It could be any of that parameter which you can keep improving with each of the months while they are with you. So that is what we are going to look about into the subject today. Today, the approach is going to be starting off with musculoskeletal, and we will try and cover endocrine system also towards the best of it. In simple words, musculoskeletal system considers of 2 major systems clubbed together, just as the word suggests, musculo and skeletal. That means muscular systems and skeletal system. Okay, and then endocrine system. Endocrine system is what? Anybody?
Glands and stuff.
Correct. Yes, glands and stuff. Anybody would like to add on to that? Feel free. Once again, there is no, scoring happening for your
It's
inputs.
a network of glands, which release hormones to control functions.
Wonderful. Okay, a network of glands which releases hormones to control bodily function. That's well put, Vihari. Great job. So we are going to speak about these in specific. It's a long presentation which I have, but we will try to, make the best of it and try to do justice for the time also. Okay, so let's start off with okay. Now, exercise physiology, as we just said, is about how the body functions and why the body functions with each of the exercise specific training which we are going to speak about. Okay, now after a point we are going to understand on how each of your bodies responses towards physical activity. This is where I was speaking about how muscles are going to act, how the bones are going to adapt, how it's going to adjust, and how hormones are going to come into action when it all have to play together during the exercise. So this is what we will try to look in today's lecture objective. Okay, and why do we need to understand this is so that we can optimize our training. How to optimize the training is another subject, that is program designing in strength and conditioning, where once you understand this base, that is how does the body exercise physiology happens in our body, then you would be able to optimize your training. But our objective is, once we learn these, we need to optimize the training for our athlete, and then by doing a proper training for an athlete, we should be able to guide them towards a healthy recovery. And training happened, recovery happened, this should help them improve their performance. This is the whole objective of our learning today. Okay, there is another thing which we will tap into, briefly so that you would be able to circle back towards the subject, which is injury prevention and rehabilitation. Another subject which you will be able to catch on to, the new batch will be able to catch on to. Some of you have already covered that. So, exercise physiology is also helpful to understand in in a specific reason so that you can prevent injuries and you can make sure that your athlete doesn't get into overtraining. Okay, two of the terms which we will come to a while later. Prevent injuries. Once we understand the functioning of our body, that is where you will be able to understand where to draw a line. That is where you will be able to understand how not to push your body towards, areas where you end up injuring, or areas where you end up harming your body. Okay, and from a general perspective, general population perspective, this is going to support the athlete or the client in their long term health and also the athletic success. So, this is our primary reason why we will be looking into this subject. And the learning objective is the physiological mechanisms. How does that function in, for example, heart rate increase, for example, the breathing increase, how it happens, the blood flow changes, that is also something which we will look at. And in the long term, the adaptations which come into play, for example, stronger muscles, better endurance, how does endurance improve, and also how does the oxygen delivery with the increased blood flow, how does that happen? So all these will start understanding from the adaptation perspective. Okay, so for those of you who are still venturing out into the field of exercise physiology, let me ask you this question personally. Okay, think it through and tell me, um, you know, what do you notice when you are climbing, say, 7 stories of staircase or 7 flights of staircase? What do you notice in your body? Anyone?
Uh,
Heart rate rise.
Usually it increases the heart rate,
Increase heart.
fatigue, or burn the legs as well, sweating.
Okay,
For
okay,
a few, it might be they might be out of breath as well.
okay, all right, good. Aparna, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was just saying increased heart rate.
Great.
Initially, maybe you'll not feel any soreness on your legs, and eventually, when you're close to the sixth or seventh flight, you'll feel tired. You'll feel your legs ache. If someone has not climbed so much earlier, they might have slowed down towards the end of it. They might have started climbing up fast. So, apart from heart rate, you can also see how sore they might feel at the end of it.
Yeah, that is subjective to a person's fitness, their fitness levels in terms of neural, muscular, which
Basically, like the energy demands get higher with each step.
good, good. So what you all gave in was valid inputs, and these are all what acute response to the human body's need of climbing, say, 7 flight of stairs. So these are acute responses. Okay, so these are the things which we will be looking into in today's session, and then let's try and get towards each of these. Okay, so the physiological responses is what you all were just speaking about right now. So, how the body system functions, including the muscles, the heart, the lungs. Do you think your lungs also showcase an acute, response to, let's say, for example, climbing 7 flight of stairs?
Yes.
Okay,
So, breathlessness for someone who hasn't climbed at all towards the end. Uh,
great.
or someone who has climbed up so fast, they also feel dopamine hit for that achievement.
Okay, good, good. For those of you who know, there is something called as respiratory rate, RR. Okay, so what we will notice in addition to the heart rate increase is also RR. Just imagine the newbies or the rookies in the health and fitness industry. If I ask them to run, let's say, a 10 kilometer, if at all they are able to finish off that, towards the end, you will see one posture on them that would be for sure visible. You know what that posture would be? They stooping down and breathing heavily. Am I correct or am I correct? Yeah. So
Yes.
what do you see over here is stooping down is basically assisted breathing. Their breathing muscles, there are a bunch of breathing muscles. We will not get into the details right now. The breathing muscles after 10 kilometer of a run, which is going to be almost about an hour, will tire up, and this will showcase in their stooping posture. They will get their hands towards the waist or towards the knee. They will bend down in such a way that their lungs will now get the support, anti-gravitated support, so that their breathing capacity also increases. So the physiological response are going to be from your lungs, from your heart, from your muscles, and from your nerves also. This is another unit which we will come into, neurological responses, how that happens in. Okay. Now the long-term adaptations are basically where your structural and functional changes happens. So that means the changes which happen in your tissue, in your organs, and in your human body systems. I hope you understand the difference between tissues and systems, right? Muscle is a tissue, bones are another tissue, your skin is a tissue. Yeah, but over a period of time, when you club them together, for example, muscles throughout your body, bones throughout your body, they become musculoskeletal system. Now this has become a system. Okay, so those are two different things. Now, as and when repeated exercise sessions, this is something which you need to keep in mind. Repeated exercise sessions happen in, there is going to be some changes, some bodily adaptations which will come into play. And the byproduct of these adaptations are going to be what? Increased strength. Sometimes it could be while the strength is being increased, the endurance might also increase. And sometimes the repeated exercises might lead towards improved cardiovascular health also. Okay. Now, let me quickly try and understand this. Based out of that, I can get towards the next part of the sessions also. ATP PC. What does this mean? ATP PC.
Adenosine triphosphate phosphate.
Yeah. Adenosine triphosphate. Good. What did you say the next part was?
Phosphate creatine.
Phosphocreatine. Correct. So this is a energy pathway of the body, which we are going to speak about soon. This is the energy system of a body, and how the body produces energy is something which we are going to look at. So there are different energy cycles. Those of you who have done their biochemistry would understand this better. ATP, PC, your glycolysis, glycolytic cycle, and many other cycles come into play. I will not bore you with this and start pinching your hair off, but I'll just keep it to the basics. ATP, PC, glycolysis, oxidation. There are different cycles, and as and when we approach towards respective topics, we will look into the relevant cycles which are in play. So the body produces and uses energy by each of these cycles, and depending upon the intensity of the physical activity and depending upon the duration of the physical activity, these energy systems keep changing. Like for example, ATP PC, which we spoke of, might immediately switch over to oxidative system immediately. How does that happen? What is the trigger factors for this to happen? Is what we are going to look at. Okay, something else which we really need to understand, and this is something which I would try to highlight in the whole subject of exercise physiology, is something which we really don't consider when we speak about exercise physiology, is the environmental factor, or otherwise called as the external factors. These external contributing factors are very relevant and very real. These are something which we should really consider. For example, temperature. Which part of India are you from is something which I need not ask, because the answer throughout India is going to be the same. How is the weather? Hot. How much degrees is something which I can ask, because that is going to be varied across different parts of India. But people who are from Mumbai, hot and humid. People who are from the southern part, for example, those who are from Kerala, hot and humid. There again, probably going towards Delhi or the middle part of the northern India, it's going to be hot and arid. So temperature makes about a difference, humidity makes about a difference, and altitude makes about another major fact of a difference. The exercises, the training, and the adaptation which you induce to your body at a sea level will not be relevant or will not be adequately enough at a higher altitude. So that is why high altitude training is a fact of discussion, which we will come to later on as well. Okay, so let's go further in towards the next, which is applications and goals. So performance enhancement. Yes, Suraj. Suraj, you have a question? Or is that a misclick? Suraj?
Hello?
Yeah.
Sir, actually my screen is very small actually. So like it's like a can can I make it like hello?
You can zoom into it. There is a plus button which you will be able to see when you take your cursor or your button over to the screen. There should be a zoom button. You can zoom in from that. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, fine.
I hope that helps. And also, if you're joining in from a system, I believe it might be a bit more better for you.
Sir, I'm using my laptop only, sir. Still
Okay.
that I'm not like screen is not big, sir. Actually, like
Okay.
shared thing is.
Mm, okay. All right.
Let me check,
Try
sir.
the zoom. Try the zoom for now. If it works in, maybe during the break we can do a troubleshoot. Probably you can share your screen and share.
Okay.
Sephin, just a suggestion. Maybe, Suraj, you can try using the LMS and open the presentation from there for now. From the laptop, it does have a very small view than the
Okay.
usual tile view. So you can try
Okay.
that for now.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
All right. So it is small in general for others also, is it?
Yeah, Sephin, for me also, the screen
Yes.
is relatively small.
Okay. All right. Let me just give that a try.
Okay, sir.
Is it any better?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Much better.
All right. Thanks for highlighting that, Suraj. Okay. Let's continue. Where were we? Okay. So applications and goals. Let me just get my system a bit better now. Okay. All right. Yes. So applications and goals, we were speaking about how the performance enhancement happens and how it's going to benefit in. So there are a few enhancements which we will be looking into. That is from a strength perspective, from a speed perspective, and from an endurance perspective, how that changes, how that improves. Okay. Now the next is disease prevention. This is something which the physio amongst us. Maybe you could just share in few words. Yeah, Tracy. So What do you understand from exercise physiology as a disease prevention and management? Any thoughts?
I lost you, Sephin.
All right, so what I was asking is disease prevention and management. What do you think about the role of exercise in disease prevention and management from a general perspective? Any thoughts, any inputs? Exercise helping prevent disease or manage disease?
Yeah, for diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, people do advise
Wonderful.
exercise, and that does definitely help them lower the blood sugar.
Great, great, wonderful input. Anybody else? Any other disease which you can think of which exercise does actively work towards the improvement?
Hypertension,
Sorry, sir.
Cardia, yeah.
obesity,
Great. Hypertension, obesity.
osteoporosis.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
Thyroid,
So we
sir.
will thyroid also wonderful. Yes, if especially if it is hypo, this is really helpful. And there is also the rehabilitation perspective is something which we need to put into consideration.
The neurological issues.
Neurological also great. Okay, now the rehabilitative perspective is exercise. This is very important. Let me highlight this in red. Exercise, once designed safely, the exercise programs are very helpful, especially for individuals who are recovering from injuries. I'm sure the BPT student, the physio student amongst us will be the best advocate to speak in on that. If you design it properly, it is going to really help you from injuries, recover from it, especially post op exercise prescriptions is another whole perspective, is another whole field, and also to manage chronic health conditions. Even it is suggested for geriatric population, the elderly population. Okay, so these are all the objectives which we need to keep in mind as an exercise physiology student. Exercise physiology, which you have learned, you need to understand how you can prevent diseases, manage diseases, help in rehabilitation. But please keep this in mind that you need to have a tailored exercise plan, because I'm sure you would have heard this a number of times, that is, one glove does not fit all. Yeah, so you need to get into an understanding now that what is the problem or what is the deal if I put it in a loose situation, what is the deal with this patient or with this individual's body? How do I handle, how do I help them overcome or recover, is what we need to help with understanding exercise physiology. Okay. Yep. Now let's start off with musculoskeletal system. Basically, in very simple words, if I put it, this is the system which creates movement. This is the system which supports the body's movement. Bones, if I have to put it, is more or less like your beams and pillars of a building, and muscles are more or less like your hinges, or muscles are more or less like your threads or your cables which pull and shut these pillars and beams of the body. Okay, so that's how the whole system are going to come into place. So once again, as I said at the introduction, I'm not going to go into the depth of basic anatomy nor the basic physiology, but I'm going to go through a run through of each of these so that all of you once again are on the same page. What is bones? Bones are structural support systems. Basically, they provide the structure and the protection of the human body. Best example of protection, the skull. Very important, very sensitive, gooey object in our body is well protected by skull. Any other system, any other organ which is so well protected by the bones?
Spinal cord.
Spine, wonderful.
Rib cage.
Rib cage, even better, great. All right, so many of such organs are well protected by the bones. Muscles, now what does muscles do? It is, as I said before, muscles are basically useful to generate force. It is useful to produce movement, and it is also the enabling factor which gets your body moving. And that's why you're not uh, immovable object, you're a movable object thanks to muscles. And the next point, which is joints. So bones, when two of them come together, they join together in different type of joints. We will not go into that again into the depth. There are some of the joints are much more stable, some of the joints are much more mobile. There is the most mobile type of joint, which is called as dash
Yeah.
joint.
Ball and socket.
Ball and socket, correct, great. Ball and socket joint is another type of joint. There are different type of joints. Cartilages, what are cartilages? It's basically a flexible connective tissue. The best example which I give in most of my lectures is this, that if you are a non-vegetarian, this is good example for you. If you are a vegetarian, this would be a good time for you to probably close your ears for a few seconds so that I can give this example out. If you eat any kind of meat, you'll be able to look into each of these points which we are speaking of in different type of segments. Cartilage is that flexible, thin, transparent type of connective tissue which we see. This is very important because it is in the bones and joints, and it prevents them from, basically friction is reduced from cartilages. Then there are tendons. This is again that especially if you are eating chicken, towards the end of the muscles, you will be able to see this. Once again, a thin, transparent, thick bond of connection towards the muscle, which is the tendon. And this joins the muscle to the bones. Okay, so this is very helpful. Why? Because it transfers the force of the muscle to the bone, so that a movement of a particular flexion or an extension, or any kind of particular movement can be done into your body. Then there are ligaments, which is just as how muscle gets connected to bones, there is bone connecting to bone also with the help of ligaments. Spinal cord is a good example where there are ligaments, quite a lot of them, and this is used to stabilize or make the joint stronger and functional in its own structure. Connective tissues are basically tissues, and the organs are connected together, and this is again going to provide its support. This is a good image for you to just have a quick visual understanding. Once again, as I said, some of you will have it as a revision, some of you will be a repeat knowledge or an information for you, but for some of you, this is going to be brand new. So I am attaching a book in your virtual campus, which will give you a depth into the exercise physiology walkthrough. And also this is visible to you on the virtual campus, this PPT, so that you can understand it. So what you're looking at onto this side, onto your right side, what is this? What is this highlighting?
Bone skeletal.
Skeletal system, great. Okay, so the major or the important aspects of bones, of course we are not covering the entire skeletal system here, but few of the bones which are very relevant when we come up when you come to talk about exercise physiology is highlighted over here though. So what you see on the right is your skeletal or your bone names, but at the same time what you see on the left here is what then?
Muscular system.
Muscles or your muscular system. Okay, so you can go through it in detail and revise it so that you all can understand on it. Now let's quickly speak about the endocrine system. Okay, so Vihari gave us a very good example definition previously, that endocrine system is a network of glands that releases hormones to regulate bodily process. Vihari, I'm hoping that you said that definition by yourself and not looking into the PPT, right?
I have just gone through the PPT. Smart luck.
Okay, all right, never mind. All right. So what we are going to look at is there are different aspects when we speak about the endocrine system. First is glands. What are glands? Glands are basically the specialized organs which will be releasing these hormones. There are a few glands which are once again important. I'm not talking about the entirety of it, but a few of them. These fewer glands are called as hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, thyroid, pancreas as a gland, and then there are gonads. Depending upon the sex of the individual, it could be testes or ovaries. So these secrete a particular type of hormone. It could be sometimes multiple hormones. Now these will be called as hormones. These secreted, uh, you know the glands will secrete what we call it as hormones. Now these hormones will have to travel through the bloodstream to target what we call it as the target organs or your specific cell or a specific tissue. These are what we call it as the receptors. So each of the receptor will now receive the hormone which is being secreted by the respective gland because of the particular receptor cells which are present on the cell membrane of these target organs, and this will trigger a cellular response within the body, within that particular individual's body. Once again, what you're looking at over here on to your right is the okay, what you're seeing over here is the endocrine system specifically to the female human body, and what you're seeing on the left over here is specific to the the male human body. The only difference, if you see over here, is the gonads. Once again, that is your sex hormones, which is testicle, and placenta, which is specific to pregnancy, or else the ovaries. Otherwise, human body would function more or less the same. Okay. Now, let's go towards the endocrine system a bit more in detail towards the next few slides. But let's go back to the muscular system, musculoskeletal system. Okay. So here's a quick question which I want you to think about before we get towards this. Those of you who are working out, those of you who have been working out, think it through and tell me, why does lifting heavy weights feel harder near the end of a set? When you're about to finish off a set, why does it feel that you're lifting much more heavier weights?
The ATP's consumption is finished. I think if I'm not mistaken.
Accumulation of lactate.
Okay, all right. Omkar says the ATP. Let me just rephrase what Omkar said. Basically, the ATP consumption have come to a level where the ATP availability is now reduced. Second is Varun says lactic acid accumulation. Good. Any other inputs?
Reduce your pH value, sir.
Nervous system becomes less efficient,
Okay, great.
pH
Neural.
values.
and byproducts like hydrogen ions also accumulate inside
Okay.
the
All
bloodstream.
right. Great.
The calcium
Yes.
stops the release from sarcoplasmic reticulum, so the cross pitch don't happen.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Great. So
Also,
basically,
the neurotransmitter
tell-
stop sending signals.
yes, your neural synapse is now running dry. So all these will start happening. Good inputs, everyone. Okay. So what is going to happen is, let's try and understand. Immediately when a person has started exercising, what really happens? Your immediate response by your body, how does it function in with respect to muscles, with respect to tendons, with respect to joints? How does these happen? Basically, your muscle fibers are going to be activated through the innervation of your muscles. Innervation happens by your brain telling that muscle through the nervous system that, hey, you need to, for example, contract. So your body will go ahead with, let's say, for example, flexion. So activation of muscle fibers happen. Within the muscle fibers are energy pathways, which will be now adjusted to the demand of the activity which your body wants. For example, if you are to lift, your brain tells your biceps brachii, for example, that you need to lift a 2 kg dumbbell. Let's take an example of 2 kg dumbbell. So your energy pathway is now going to adjust based on the activated muscle fibers for a specific 2 kg muscle fiber. Now let's assume that your 2 kg dumbbell had to be contracted by the muscle fiber for only a set of 12 repetitions. That's it. Your energy pathway again is going to be different. But if it is for a span of say 2 minutes, you have to continuously, lift and relax, lift and relax, then your energy pathway again is going to change. That's what I meant by the energy pathways will adjust to meet the demand. So ATP demand will accordingly bring about a change, and this is what we were just giving an example of mechanical stress. So the 2 kg dumbbell was an example of the mechanical stress, which induces difference of activation of muscle fibers. Energy pathway activation also will be different depending upon the body's demands and the mechanical stress. Okay, now the byproducts are the inflammatory responses, as some of you mentioned. The inflammatory responses are inevitable, are something which will be there at any given point of time when, as and when you activate the muscle fibers. It is inevitable. So how do you train your body? This is what the adaptation and repair comes in as a major point of discussion. So how do you train your body to adapt to these inflammatory response, your metabolic byproducts, and how do you let your body train towards the repair of the body? Okay, once again, those of you who are quite uniquely interested into muscle fibers, what is, how is, let me just ask you a quick question. How many of you have seen electric cable? I'm not talking about a very thin electric cable, a thick electric cable cut.
I see it every day.
cut of course, Omkar sees it every day. Right. Anybody else? I hope everybody else also have seen electric cable cut through and through. A big energy supply cable. Why am I saying this is there will be what we call it as myofibrils, that is individual muscle fibers, as you see over here on the screen. Each of them will bundle up together, and these myofibrils or muscle fibers will club together and together and together to actually form the belly of the muscle or the actual muscle mass in itself. Okay, so this is how the muscle fiber distribution goes. Yeah. Now, the next thing is the innervation, which I spoke to you about. Once again, I'm not going towards the depth of it because there would be some repetitions if I get into the neural aspect of it now. So there is different type of motor neurons, that is your nerves, which come from spinal cord, that is the carrier of the information from your brain. And at the ganglion, that is, let's say for example, if this is your lower body muscles, let's say for example at L5 or S1 spinal cord, your ganglions will now spread out into different motor neurons, and motor neurons will reach out to the muscle fibers, and what we call it as at over here, the area where these nerves connect to the muscle fibers are called as axon terminals. Okay, now one of you mentioned that the neurosynapse, that is neurotransmitters, will run dry. Is basically, you see this black head over here, unlike the face blackhead, this is a different blackhead, which is your nerve coming in to connect to the muscle. And if we go microscopic, you will see that there will be a empty spot, something like this, your nerve here and then your muscle over here. Okay, so this will be an empty spot which will have few chemicals, we'll just leave it at that, But if you're interested, you can go back into the reference documents which I've attached in to read and revise. So these chemicals, which are called as chemical receptors, will be utilized to transfer the information from the nerve to the muscle. And over a period of time, this is what we were speaking about previously, that it will run dry, it will just finish off, then your body will have to replenish or refill this neurosynapse. Okay, so this is the motor unit recruitment and the fiber types. Okay, talking about fiber types, we will now speak about there are how many different muscle fibers? Even if it is a wrong answer, it's okay. I would be happy if you actively engage. There are three different muscle fibers. Great.
Three.
Would you like to name them?
Type 1, type 2, type 2A, or 2X.
Slow twitch, fast twitch, and fast twitch glycolate.
Wonderful. Okay, so there are three different muscle fibers. This is what we are going to read about. The first one is type 1. Second one is obviously called as type 2, but in second one, we have two sub classifications again, type 2A. Yes, again, type 1 and type 2. That's why I'm saying type 2 sub classification. So type 2 has type 2A, and the other one is as type 2X or type 2B. Okay, so what are the difference? Type 1 is slow twitch muscle fibers. Type 2 is the fast twitch fibers, but in fast twitch fibers, one is the oxidative fibers, the other is the glycolytic fibers. Okay, so in simple words, in addition to what you see on the screen, in simple words, basically type 1 is for endurance, type 2 is for what? Type 2 fibers, okay?
Speed. Type 2 for force and
400 meters per
fast
liter.
contractions.
Yeah,
High force
great.
and power.
So what is type 2X or type 2B then?
100
Type
meters
2
per
is
liter.
intermittent. High force and power.
Olympic lift.
Correct. Okay, so type 2B is where the power or the explosive power come into play. Type 2A is where mixed function, where it is able to balance out a bit of slow twitch also and a bit of the explosive power also. So it can work in on both the ways. That is, it can work in on both aerobic and the anaerobic pathways, and that's why it is the fast twitch oxidative fibers, whereas the other one is the glycolytic fibers, which primarily helps in these two factors, which is high force. A good amount of force generation happens within these muscle fibers, and then a rapid or a very quick contractibility is shown in these muscles. But the drawback over here is they are very quickly fatigable, and it is heavily relying on anaerobic metabolism. Okay, so that is the beauty about type 2 fibers. Now, when we speak about type 1, it is a different creed altogether, or a different structure altogether, because they are very much focused towards endurance oriented. That means it is going to kick in late and it is going to survive in the longest also. The Because primarily it is high fatigue resistance, and it primarily functions in on oxygen, that is which metabolic pathway? Your aerobic metabolic pathways, it will start functioning, so let us speak about sport specific. Okay, so let me ask you this, type 2X or type 2B or type 1, where would a sprinter fall in under?
2x.
Type
2x.
Perfect. Okay, great. That's the correct one. Type 2X or type 2B is where the sprinter fiber domination happens. Okay. All right. Now let's go towards the next one, motor unit recruitment. I hope you all are there with me till now. Everyone? Okay. Yeah. So let's speak about, depending upon the intensity of the exercises, your fiber recruitment is also accordingly decided by the body. Something which we spoke a couple of slides before. For example, if it is a low intensity exercise, your type 1 will be recruited primarily. Okay, but as and when the intensity increases, or let's say for example the exercise started off with a high intensity in itself, then the type 2 fibers will be primarily activated. If you notice my words carefully, I'm saying primarily activated. Your human body is a complex system in such a way that it never functions in an independent manner. It's not that just because, let's say, the same example which we gave before of bicep curl. If we have to do a bicep curl, it's not that only your bicep brachii will function. There is always agonist and antagonist. In addition, there are support muscle systems. In addition, there are multiple other systems which will kick into place. So it's never an independent function. There are multiple other systems or supporting muscle groups in the background, but what we are speaking about is a specific muscle group, and that's what we are speaking about in this particular topic. Motor unit will be triggering out depending upon the intensity of the exercise, and this is why, for example, if you have been training for sprint and then just a day before your sprint tournament or your sprint race, you just can't switch over to marathon and say that, okay, I've trained for sprint but I would like to take part in a full marathon. Because you trained your body have been adapting to different type of systems. All of a sudden, if you would like to get your body from type 2 to type 1 and then accordingly get its functioning, you will be working against the exercise physiology. Okay, here is where we'll speak about energy systems. Okay, now coming back to the same example, in a 100-meter sprint, here's a question so that you all are there with me. In a 100-meter sprint, which kind of energy system do you think will kick in over here?
Phosphogen.
ATPPC.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So what is each of these systems? We will have a quick look at. For some of you, it might be a revision. Just have some of you already showcased that to me, so that's good. ATP PCR or ATP PC is basically what we call it as the phosphogen system. This gets activated within the first 10 to 15 second activity specific cycle. So for these short sprints of activities, your body will be getting into the phosphogen system. The beauty about this is what, once again, as we said, it is high intensity, short burst requirements. The energy system of ATP-PC gets into play. Now, if we speak about, again, not continuation, but a different approach, if it has to go to more than 30 seconds to 2 minutes, then imagine the energy system from phosphogen system will now switch over from phosphogen system to the anaerobic glycolysis, which will get kicked in, let's say, from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. The difference over here is intensity will be more or less the same, yes, but it will now start producing byproducts like that of lactate. Okay, so after 2 minutes or greater than 2 minutes to 3 minutes, which are prolonged exercises or activities, your body will switch from anaerobic glycolysis to aerobic oxidation or oxidative cycle. This is where the sustained activities like exercises or activities which last for more than 2 minutes, your body system will be preferring aerobic oxidation for its energy primarily. And unlike the previous energy system, especially the phosphogen ATP PCR, which we spoke of, this is aerobic oxidation is going to function in completely in the presence of oxygen. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, let's go towards the energy shift pattern. Energy systems are basically going to work overlapping each other, and they are going to work independently, sometimes cumulatively. But let's try and understand how it functions, one following another. Yes, Aaron, tell me,
Sir, I just had a small doubt.
please.
So since in a particular activity, for example, jogging, we're using
Mhm.
the type 1 fibers, right? But
Yeah.
in terms of sprinting, we're using the type 2 fibers, right? So does that mean that if I'm jogging and sprinting like simultaneously, I'm training both the type of fibers simultaneously?
Yes. So when you say training, that means for a activity for a prolonged duration, or just for a particular sport, or a particular minute,
Maybe a particular minute.
just for a particular minute, is it?
So it's like, no, I mean, what I mean is, if I'm jogging for maybe 1 minute, right? So I'm recruiting the type 1 fibers,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sprinting right after the first minute.
Okay.
So I'm recruiting the type 2 fibers, right?
Yes. So to give you in brief, you will be using both the muscle fibers here when you train. Okay. But then at the
Okay.
same time, try and understand that both the examples which you gave are two different ends of the spectrum. When you say sprinting, it would mean maximum force within the shortest duration, and jogging means more of prolonged activity. So force is less, but the duration is more. So your approach accordingly changes. So if you have to train for a sport specific, let's say for example, if it is a sprint race which you're training in for, you will have to focus in on a specific type of muscle fiber activation, and its training uh, dramatically benefits from that. But if you start training one day sprint, the other day jogging, your body will be, here and there.
Hmm.
So this is what we need to understand from a training adaptation perspective. The closest but relevant example which I can think of, which is in line to what you just gave, is basically interval training. Correct?
Yep.
Sephin, I think I am assumed that since he's coming from football, he's relating to that experience and then asking you a question based on that.
Is that what it is, Anthony?
Yeah. So what I meant was, in football, what happens is basically you're running slow, and then in
Mhm.
sudden movements you have to be rapid, right? So, does that mean कि I'm recruiting one particular muscle fiber at a time is what I meant.
Okay. All right. So good. Now that becomes sport specific. See, this is much better to answer it. So basically, think about it. Majority of your time as a footballer, what you would be doing is basically jogging or walking, or very basic less force engaging activities. But there will be times where you need to sprint, where you need explosive power. So you will be working in a combination of type 1 primarily, and type 2 also, as and when a requirement comes. I hope that makes a sense. For example, a ball has been passed to you. As and when the ball is received by you, till that time, for example, you would have been a baseline, you would have been jogging, or you would have been walking. But now that the ball is at your control, your change comes into play. You will now get back into towards the type 2 fibers. I hope that helps.
Yes. Okay. That works.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Perfect. So moving back into the metabolic pathway shifts. So at the start of the exercise, the ATP and the PCR is going to be broken down. Basically, your ATP PCR cycle is going to come into play. As and when the duration of the exercise increases, the second system, that is the glycolytic system, kicks in. And with the duration again furthermore going beyond, say, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and more, accordingly, your next cycle, that is your aerobic energy system cycle, kicks in. Okay, so here is where I'm going to put across three Examples. I would want three different people to answer each of them individually. Okay. Show of hands, please, not simultaneous answers. So, a sprint, we already answered this, but still, maybe one of you can respond. Which metabolic pathway would you be considering when you speak about sprinting? Anybody?
Type 2X.
No, we're speaking about your energy systems now.
ATP, phosphogen.
ATP PCR. Okay, great.
ATPC.
Yes, 400-meter.
Anaerobic.
Great.
Glycolysis.
Anaerobic glycolysis, great. And now for the last one, which is marathon, which one would you be looking into?
Type 1.
Aerobic.
Oxidative.
The oxidative or the aerobic oxidation. Great. Perfect. Let's keep moving further in there. So here's an example which I'm putting across. More or less, again, in the same lines to what Aaron Benny also was asking in. I hope the further slides will get you a better understanding in. And also there is a activity or an assignment which I want you to engage in, which I will put it across on the virtual campus so that you can upload it, is depending upon a sprinter or depending upon being a marathon runner, the muscle fiber composition is going to be. Have a quick look and let me know if you have any questions. We will keep this recovery time as a point of discussion for later, but everything else is something which we already spoke of. Okay, I hope it is clear now, everyone. Okay. Now try and understand this. Exercise places a mechanical stress on the muscles, on the musculoskeletal system. Now this stress is actually necessary for improvement. Yeah, we are going to try and break this down on. Okay, so first and foremost, try and understand this. Muscles, depending upon the mechanical stress which it undergoes. For example, if it is a 2 kg dumbbell and you're doing a bicep curl, this is something which your mechanical stress for the biceps in itself would be very minimal. Yeah, but if it is all of a sudden a 12 kg of a weight which you are about to lift, and this is something which you're not familiar with, which your body is not familiar with, this might be a mechanical stress foreign to the body. This might actually lead to your muscle to have something what we call it as micro tears. Although it sounds a bit scary, but it is natural and it is beneficial for us, because this micro tear leads towards the strengthening of the myofibrils, or these tears will now be replenished with additional new myofibrils, and this is how your muscle will get strengthened. Similarly, the mechanical stress is not just to the muscle belly or the muscle in itself, but it would also be to the tendons and ligaments in association with your muscle. That is, your tendons and ligaments will be absorbing the force generated by your muscle. This is going to be once again useful, you know how, because it is going to adapt again. So if you have been loading your body, now when I say loading your body, again, go back to the same example. If you have been giving a 2 kg bicep dumbbell for your bicep muscle, and you have been doing that as an exercise for a prolonged period, you are not going to mechanically stress the tendons and ligaments enough to lead to a gradual adaptation. But all of a sudden, on the contrary, on the extreme end of it, all of a sudden, imagine you give a 20 kg of a load to the bicep, which was familiar only with 2 kg previously. This is where the tendons and ligaments will now face immense mechanical stress, sometimes even leading to failure. So this is a extreme end of the consideration which you need to keep in mind. Okay. Now the next interesting topic is joints will be experiencing load, yes, but the muscle's ability of contraction, relaxation depends upon the neuromuscular control. So we will come towards that in the next few slides. But neural control over these muscles is just as important as the muscle being bulky, muscle having enough strength, or even the muscle's metabolic pathways already being in good place. Your body should also have a good neuromuscular control. Okay. Good examples, the running, which we've been giving examples of as a sprinter. The running impact is not just going to be on your muscles contracting, relaxing, and the strain caused in by the muscles on it, leading to micro trauma, micro tear, but this is going to lead towards the tendons, ligaments, and even bone as a mechanical stress. Weight lifting is a good example. All the explosive plyometric movements which you do, jump plyometric are the jump and explosive activities which you do, jump and the landing forces also bring about a similar micro trauma or a micro tear. Okay. Now the previous example which I gave about tendon and ligament, this is something which we see very commonly, as and when the loading is not appropriate to the tendon and the ligaments capability, you might lead to something called as tendonitis, or maybe sometimes continuous loading on the heavier side without your tendons and ligaments getting adapted would even lead to overuse injuries. Similar is the joint stress, where your bones, your joints are not capable enough to absorb and transfer the forces. It might lead to cartilage damage, it might lead to inflammation of your joints, sometimes even stress fractures. Okay. All right, a relevant question actually in this. Why? Okay, because we recently had, a very good space exploration activity done by US, which enabled them to go around the moon and come back in. Something which I was very closely watching in throughout their live feed. A relevant question to you all. Think it through and tell me, why do you think astronauts are more prone to bone and muscle loss in space?
Gravity has different.
I
Okay, gravity has, I didn't get that.
Basically, the gravity acts upon the body differently. So that is why they have to train before they go in the space.
Great. Okay. Anybody else?
The
Yes,
gravity
probably.
constantly loads the muscles.
Just the muscles?
And
Your entire
bones.
body, actually. Yeah, your entire body.
Whenever
We're,
you do, when
yeah,
you
we're
walk in
speaking about
stand.
the musculoskeletal system. No? So the entire musculoskeletal system, basically what you both gave very relevant good inputs is basically the lack of mechanical loading due to the lack of gravitational force or the gravitational pull starts affecting the astronaut's bone and the muscle in a negative cycle, in a negative way, because of which they are much more prone. Okay. Anyway, just an example for you to understand about mechanical stress and how that helps towards the adaptation of bone and muscular strengthening in a prolonged period. Okay, so let's go towards the mechanical stress and how the inflammation responses come into play. This is something which I'm sure all of you might have experienced one time or another. So imagine the days when you just started off exercising, when you just hit the gym for the very first time. You did a particular exercise. What all were your feelings? What all did you feel after you reached back home?
Muscle soreness.
Muscle soreness. What else? Now, be very general. Be very subjective. What were your experiences?
Very painful.
Pain, painful.
Painful. Okay.
Rest for a week.
Rest for a
Swelling,
week.
swelling
Really?
can happen.
Okay. You rested for a whole week there, Vihari, huh?
Body feeling like very stiff.
Body is feeling stiff. Great. That's a very good input. What else? So we spoke about pain or discomfort, swellings, one of you mentioned. Stiff is basically range of motion getting restricted. Sometimes, if you would have noticed, even less of the Indian subcontinent people notice, but especially in the European and the Western community, people observe this very evidently. The redness in the localized muscle or the localized region, it is really a tone different if you look into that particular activated muscle, and sometimes even warm to touch that particular area which have gone through the mechanical load. These are all the things which are signs of acute inflammation. When we speak about inflammation, otherwise doctors suggest pop a couple of pills that will make you feel better. But when it comes to exercise and inflammation in response to exercise related inflammation, the best recovery is what? Rest and nutrition. Yeah, because the more you rest, the more your body will be able to get back towards a proper cycle where it replenishes the neurotransmitters, your myofibrils, which has gone through a micro tear. Everything will start getting replenished, and that's how the recovery come into play. But if it is in severe cases, sometimes it is good to go ahead with a cryo or basically a cold therapy, or sometimes now even contrast baths is also coming into a good picture. And if you have rested out, let's say, for example, 2 days or 48 hours to 72 hours or something, then you can also engage with what we call it as active recovery exercises. Some examples of active recovery: movement or exercise.
Walking, cycling.
As simple as walking, heading out for a walk. Again, small pace, small steps, baby steps. You need not jump back to sprinting. Probably you start with casual walk or a stroll, very low RPM cycling. All these will be considered as active recovery exercise. Now, this is the principle of adaptation. The body adapts specifically to the stress which you have applied, and I'll come back to that concept. Yes, Bharat.
If I'm not diving too deep, the contrast bath help in vasoconstriction, vasodilation. Is there anything other than that that is helpful, helping the recovery better with contrast baths?
Contrast baths function primarily because of vasoconstriction, vasodilation, as you mentioned. In other words, basically the blood vessels going to that particular muscle and the system in itself will be shortened and increased, which works like more or less like a blood pump in that particular area, which helps in quicker recovery. That's what the study says. But one more thing which in addition, Bharat, which can help is stretching, or basically active stretch or passive stretch with restricted end range of motions, can also help in a quicker recovery.
How does pump help you recover?
How does?
Blood pump, or how does
No, no.
that?
I was just making it into simple words for everybody to
Okay.
get.
Yeah.
Basically, the same vasoconstriction, vasodilation happening, but stretching also increases your muscle fibers, which increases your blood supply towards the region, and that increases in flushing out or removing the byproducts, metabolic or toxic byproducts, and if the particular muscle's recovery would be much more faster. Yeah. Okay, Bharat.
Done, Sephin. Thank you.
Yeah. Omkar.
So, I have a doubt basically.
Tell
Uh,
me.
a hyperbaric chamber is used for treatment or recovery, or what is exactly used
Hyperbaric chamber is
used for a treatment, or for what exactly it is used?
treatment, or I didn't get the second part.
Basically, I'm asking whether it is used for a treatment or any other application.
Okay, all right. So, Omkar, just for everybody's understanding, if you could just put across a brief intro into hyperbaric chamber or the hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
This is also new for me. Basically, I have read
Okay.
somewhere, but I don't know detail basically about it.
Okay. Anybody over here who would like to just pass across a brief intro into this hyperbaric chamber? Anybody ever tried this before? Anyone? A thumbs down if you haven't. Okay, so what really happens, just like how the word suggests, hyperbaric, hyper, H-Y-P-E-R, hyperbaric chamber, this is basically going to increase your atmospheric pressure within that particular room or the particular bed which you would be lying under or sitting on. Okay, this is going to force the oxygen, because as and when the atmospheric pressure is increased, the oxygen level in the air will be increased. Now this is going to force the oxygen into your bloodstream. A higher level of blood plasma is going to come into play, where sometimes even let me give a example. Sometimes even up to 400% more oxygen could be delivered to your tissues. And I need not explain you to the basics, right? The more the oxygen, the more quicker the recovery. The more quicker the recovery, the less chance of what we otherwise call it as DOMS, that is delayed onset of muscle soreness. Yeah, so this has actually come into play very commonly because of many top players, Mohamed Salah and probably even Cristiano Ronaldo and all these people. Mohamed Salah basically has a HBOT within his home itself, a hyperbaric oxygen therapy within his home itself. So these are the tools which they use for treatment and recovery. It's not for training purpose. It is for treatment and recovery primarily. Okay, Omkar?
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, moving further in, let's go towards the 22nd slide. All right, let's push in for another 9 minutes and then we'll take a break. Okay. All right. I hope you all are not started off with your break already. I hope you guys are there with me still. Okay.
Yes.
Great to see. So when the training is repeated over many a weeks, many a months, your body starts permanently adapting. That is what we are going to speak about, musculoskeletal chronic adaptations. So long-term exercises leading to structural and functional changes. For example, strength training over a prolonged period, adaptation, increase in muscle size. Strength training over a prolonged period, I'm not saying prolonged period over a month, just a single month, for many months at stretch, stronger tendons, stronger connective tissues. If you have been doing, let's say, skill specific training over a period of time, the adaptation over here is improved coordination, improved game specificity coming into play. This is what I was going to speak about. That is SAID principle. How many of you know over here SAID principle? What is that?
Specific adaptations to imposed demands.
Yeah. So simple words, if you have to be a good cricketer, you will have to start playing the particular shots which you want to improve. You do that n number of times, and then your body starts adapting to it much better. For example, if you are a F1 driver or if you are into racing sports, motor sport, anything of that of a particular sport, your coordinations, your reflexes will have to be trained, and that is what you will do over and over and over again, so that your adaptation accordingly starts coming into play. Okay, so the idea is the body adapts according to the type of training which you have been performing, and that if you have been doing it consistently, religiously over a prolonged period, this will become a permanent adaptation for your body even. Okay, and that is why, for example, marathon runners like Eliud Kipchoge, I don't know how many of you know his name. Kipchoge, anyone? Okay, great. So if you consider him, he is a very tender human being, a very thin, tender human being. But when you throw him across on a long stretch of marathon running, you will see his, his body's capability then. The average pace which he maintains in a marathon is many a times the maximum speed many sprinters achieve, and that is surprising how they come across with such feats. Obviously he trained over a prolonged period, and that is the reason why his body is designed now in such a way. Okay, muscle hypertrophy. So there are two major type of muscular hypertrophy. Hypertrophy meaning that the growth or the increase in the size of the muscle is going to come into play, and this is going to be in response to the mechanical load and the stress which has been induced on that particular muscle. There are two type of hypertrophy which we are going to look at. First is myofibrillar hypertrophy. Second is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Anybody would like to summarize this? I know that this is a topic which is very common, so we will just summarize and keep walking further ahead. Myofibrillar hypertrophy, what it means. You already have the pointers to refer and add. Go ahead, Bharat. Bharat, you wanted to add on something? Okay, anybody else? Myofibrillar hypertrophy, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. If you know, you can unmute and speak. If you don't, just give me a thumbs up so that I can understand and accordingly guide you through.
No, it's already
No,
given. So whatever I'm going to say is already given. So it feels like I'm just repeating the same from the
No,
screen.
you can still see a general thumb rule when it comes to learning is.
I want
Uh,
to add one point which is not mentioned.
all right.
Go ahead, Bihari. You be the
Uh,
honor.
for sarcoplasmic, it's like higher reps, moderate load, and for myofibrillar, it is heavy loads and lower reps. That's it.
So myofibrillar could adapt in a 6 to 8 range as more than a 8 to 12 or 12 to 15 is what some of the researchers say.
Okay. So the examples which both of you gave also falls closely towards the guidelines for strength training and also for endurance training. Correct? Yeah. So endurance training is basically on the
But
lower.
according to what Bharat said, 6 to 8 reps,
Hmm.
it is again subjective to endurance training, right?
Correct. Yes. It is very subjective even to sport specifics. So that's why I will not give numbers, but
Yes.
just load on the lesser side, repetition on the higher side is going to be what type of a training? Anyone?
Myofibrillar.
Okay. Strength and endurance basis. For strength type of training is what? Endurance type of training is what?
Strength is myofibrillar. Endurance is sarcoplasmic.
Correct. Okay. Good. So first of all, try and understand. Let me just quickly showcase this out. So the physio amongst us, could you just quickly unmute and just take us through on the walk along theory or the sliding filament theory? actin, myosin, when we speak about that, we usually have this walk along theory which we speak about, right, Tracy? Okay, all right. We'll circle back to you, Tracy, then. So what I wanted to highlight is there is something called as, yes, would you like to say, Tracy? Or anybody else?
Uh, the sliding filament
Sliding.
theory is when the myosin filaments try to pull the actin towards the sarcomere is what the sliding theory is about. The filaments, although do not change the length actually, but they actually slide past the to shorten the entire muscle.
Correct. Okay. Okay. The
First.
Let me just put this across in perspective. Can you see the small thin image which I'm drawing onto the side? Is that all visible for you guys?
No.
Yes.
Yes,
No?
yes.
Let me just make it much more evident then. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is actin and there is myosin. Actin and myosin. So there is filaments or the myofibril. I'm going microscopic here. Okay, this is not something which you will be able to see on muscle fiber from your naked eyes. We are going microscopic. So your actin and myosin is going to be in such a way that myosin has these kind of heads, filament heads, which is going to get latched onto. It's not a P. Okay, I'm just very bad at drawing. I've made it evident over and over again. This is another example of it. So these are heads which is getting latched onto your actin. And what is going to happen is these myosin heads are going to latch onto the actin. And as and when they contract, this is going to get pulled towards each other. The result being the muscle contraction. Did you get that? Yes, Omkar? Omkar, you have a question? Okay. So did you guys get this? So basically, your myosin and actin is in such a way that your walk along theory means that each of these fibers, now I think I will have to showcase it live across. So imagine it in this way. So your heads are going to get latched onto in such a way that it latches on here and then it pulls. The one behind will latch and pull. So when it pulls, both the actin fibers are going to get closer to each other, and this is the walk along theory which is going to happen. So by doing so, your contractibility of the muscle is what is showcased. So when we speak about myofibril hypertrophy, we are talking about this, that the myosin heads are going to get much more contractile proteins or these heads, so that in such a way that the ability to latch onto your actin and draw it closer is going to be much more stronger, which enables the contractile proteins to give across greater strength to generate much more force. That is the primary objective. And this is why this is relevant when it comes to strength training. I went microscopic to explain what is myofibril hypertrophy. I hope you guys understood this. Everyone. Okay, great. Perfect. All right, time for a break. We will take a break and then come back in. A break of 15 minutes. Yeah, let's come back at
4:20.
Okay, all right. Your request granted. 4:20. Let's come back at 4:20 and then we will start off with. You can stay in on the meeting room itself. We will start at dot 4:20 so that we can continue as well. All right. Catch up with you all soon. Okay, great. Every everyone else? I hope you all are back. Okay, so let's continue where we had left off last. So now we are going to speak about muscle hypertrophy and the mechanisms of hypertrophy. First and foremost is mechanical tension, is basically heavier the resistance, the muscle faces. This heavy resistance or mechanical load creates a tension within the muscle fibers, which provides protein synthesis. The wear and tear is now replaced by the protein, replaced by newer muscle fibers, myofibrils, and then what we call it as the muscle remodeling happens. This is the reason why the increase in muscle size comes into play. Now, next is the metabolic stress, which comes into play, is basically the waste or the byproducts which we spoke about before. The lactate accumulation, one of the most common thing which happens over here is the lactate accumulation, which happens, the cellular fatigue, which we spoke of, for example, the lack of or running dry of the NMJ receptors, neuromuscular junction receptors, neural receptors in between them. So these would be the metabolic stress, and as and when that happens, the changes, adaptations accordingly come into place. Okay, there are few hormonal contributions which we are now going to start speaking about, so that the endocrinal approach towards the musculoskeletal system is also being introduced in. So couple of the hormones which I have mentioned across, which we will speak about further into detail in the upcoming slides, is very commonly spoke of hormone is testosterone. Testosterone is basically to support protein synthesis when we speak about muscle hypertrophy. GH, or otherwise call it as the growth hormone, is going to help when it is specific to muscle hypertrophy about the tissue repair. The tissue repair is going to happen thanks to the GH available. This is one of the reason why we spoke about sleep and rest and recovery as one of the key crucial element when it comes to the resting and recovery of an athlete or an individual who have started off with exercises. And the DOMs which we speak of previously, for example, Vihari mentioned that he was for a whole week on a mode of rest and recovery. When, as and when a person is sleeping, it is a growth hormone spurt which we see. That is, we will speak about it when it comes to it, but basically as and when the REM sleep hits, your GH spurt occurs, and GH, your growth hormone spurt occurs, which directly assists towards, aids towards the muscle hypertrophy and muscle repair and recovery. Okay, the next is IGF-1, that is insulin like growth factor hormone 1. This is useful to promote muscle growth signaling. The need for the glands to appropriately release the GH and other hormones to assist towards the muscle growth is the IGF-1's primary approach. Yeah, so basically these are the attributes when it comes to the hormonal contribution towards muscle hypertrophy. Okay, increasing the speed a slight bit so that we can cover up a bit more. Now the muscle architectural changes, if you have to speak about, think about it from the long-term perspective once again. The long-term training is going to change the actual structure of muscles as we spoke previously. Okay, so a couple of terminologies which the previous batches who had come for the practicals, they have come across these terms, so you guys will have to explain these out loud. Okay, so first and foremost, what is cross sectional area or CSA? What do you understand by that? Anybody knows what is CSA?
Of the muscle, sir. Total size of the muscle.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? It's a simple approach. Basically, this is done in quite a lot of in some tests and radiology departments also, it's basically the cross sectional area or the cut section area, in other words, basically to understand the muscle fiber, the density of it, the muscle deposition of it, and accordingly we will be able to understand how thicker the fibers are, how much of actin, how much of myosin. So that is what the larger CSA would indicate. So each of these is what we will understand from CSA. Next word which you all can think it through and tell me is pennation angle. What do you understand by pennation angle?
How the muscle penetrates the tendon and the angle of it.
The angle at which the muscle fibers attach to the tendon.
Great, great.
Perfect
Basically,
definition we had.
good, very good. Vyari is textbook definition of a guy. Good job. So, a simple example, it's basically the structural secret behind how the muscle puts forward the force. Yeah, so it is the angle at which individual muscle fibers are inserted into the tendon. Okay, so it's not like that it is just a crisscross manner or straight up and down. It is basically in a specific angle it penetrates. Okay, in the upcoming slides there is a very good image of it where you will be able to understand. So why is this helpful? Because if the penetration angle is better, the particular muscle will be able to generate greater force. Okay, now the next thing is neural drive will be improved. Now the neural drive is basically the nervous system getting activated in such a way, no, the nervous system activating muscles in such a way that the muscles now can contract much more efficiently and much more synchronized manner. So once again, a point of definition which we will come across when we get towards the neural discussion in the upcoming units. Okay, now something which we just spoke of thanks to a healthy discussion which we had before in regard to the hyperbaric chamber, the vasodilation, vasoconstriction. So basically the capillary density is something which we also need to understand, so that the hypertrophy and the muscle architectural changes is a point of discussion when it comes to it. So imagine this in a way that more the blood vessels improve the oxygen delivery, more the blood vessels improve the nutrient supply. So what happens is a muscle which is well trained, well adapted, there is more capillaries reaching out to your myofibrils. That means your blood supply to these active working muscle fibers are much more than an untrained muscle. So there is a better oxygen delivery. And when it comes to the rest and recovery part of it, there is much better nutrient supply also. Okay. All right. Now, adaptation timeline is just a brief introduction for especially the new to the sports science field to understand that within the initial few of weeks, okay, probably the people who are already working professionals of SNCs, you can tell me, is this a common phenomena that you've observed that beginners improve the strength quite quickly, especially within the first few weeks, and then there is, sometimes a plateau which they hit in?
Yes.
Why is that so? Why do you think?
So basically, initially they have the neural adaptations. That's where they see a lot of changes, physical changes as well.
Correct. The exact word, neural adaptations.
Again, going by the book, he saw the book and then gave you the exact.
Going by the book definition of a guy. Yep, great. So neural adaptations improve, and it's very quickly visible in rookies, very quickly visible in beginners. That's a very good interpretation which we can derive out of. Within few weeks, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, their strength improvement is very visible, very much quick adaptations come in. Yeah, but over a period of time is the actual hypertrophy which will follow. The muscular hypertrophy, the improve in muscle size, muscle belly will follow after a few weeks, probably close to a month or more, depending upon various factors. Once again, if you remember at the start, we spoke about environmental factors. In environmental factors, there is another subclassification, that is your sleep, your hydration, your rest, your recovery, your nutrition, etc., etc., etc. So these would also play a major role towards the visible hypertrophy and the strength improvement, which could be within a month. That means close to the fourth week itself, or sometime post a month. But if you have been doing your training for years at a stretch, this is where your muscle in its architectural remodeling starts applying in. So that means this is where the pennation angle of a change which we spoke about start happening. Your tendon and ligament strength improvement starts showing up. All these happens over prolonged years of training. That is what makes an athlete from just a gym goer. This is the major difference. Okay. Now, coming back to the bone density or skeletal muscle, now we are getting back to just as how we have been speaking about muscles and how they adapt, we have bones also adapting to exercises. Please remember, it was a very funny discussion when one of the lectures was going on, and when the student was actually addressing bone as if it's a non-living thing, bone as if it's not a very active living cell. But science proves it very evidently that bone is just as living a cell as any of the other systems. So bone responds, bone does bring about inductions and adaptations depending upon the mechanical load and the exercises which you give. So there is bone remodeling process which happens. Exercise will stimulate what we call it as the osteoblast and osteoclast. Anybody would like to just explain what are these terms which I just mentioned about? Osteoblast and osteoclast. Anyone?
Cells of the bone, basically, they're called as osteoclast.
Correct. Yes. So what does osteoblast do and what does osteoclast do?
I think
Osteoblast builds new bone and class breakdown.
Brilliant, brilliant, wonderful. Just putting across a easier term for everybody to remember and understand. Think about it in this way: osteoblast is the building crew, and osteoclast is the demolition crew. So it's a very healthy cycle in such a way that osteoblast will build up new cells, and osteoclast over here will be eating down the other old cells. So this is how the bone remodeling continuously happens, and this is a very continuous process. You remember the example which we gave about astronauts and how the density of bone and the muscle mass is wasted out. This is again the same mechanical stress not happening in, because of which the demolition crew is now more active. That means the osteoclast is now more active than that of osteoblast. So this is how the negative cycle comes into play. Okay, so that is why if you go back to the astronaut example, you will see that each of the space mission shuttles which have gone into the space will have at least one exercise machine. Quite commonly they use probably a cycle, sometimes elliptical, or sometimes a normal cycle, but they use some or the other machine so that exercise of one form or another is mandatorily given across. I hope the same for you, Omkar. Yeah, so this is something which is essential. So what is best for the bone density is running. Any other example which you can give? What is best for bone density? It's given right over here.
strength training.
Strength training is important, and most important is basically the high impact sports or any kind of, you know,
Sprinting.
yes, sprinting, jumping, all these are very important. Okay, now when we consider from a general perspective or a general population perspective, even basic activities like that of human body is so beautifully designed that even basic weight bearing activities can help in sustenance of the end of the demolition and the building crew combination. I hope you understood what I meant. Osteoblast and clast combination could be still maintained by basic weight bearing activities. It could be running, walking, hiking. Hiking, as in, I'm not talking about trekking, I'm talking about hiking, even basic walking like that. Those could be of help. Okay. Yes, I will ask you specifically the other questions which are not on the screen, but the others can also, benefit out of the available screen answers. No,
Because if we are answering, then you're saying that it's from textbook or something.
no, it was appreciation still, Biari. Yeah, there
Okay.
are some definitions which you gave which were not in the. I remember using that in some of the other Kendall books of anatomy, so that's why I mentioned it the first time that it was a proper definition of a answer which you gave. So good job on it. Keep it up. Okay. So bone density improvements. Okay, just putting across a thought over here. This is something which I was studying, and I just came across that when you consider racket sport athletes like that of tennis, primarily tennis, it is surprising to know that their dominant side of the body have a bone difference in density. For example, if a tennis athlete is a right arm or right-handed player, they will have a denser bone density when it comes to their right lower limb, right upper limb. This is a very good example when it comes to the repeated mechanical loading perspective also still. Right? So this is how beautifully your body, your bone specifically adapts towards mechanical load.
Sephin, can you say that again?
Okay, so tennis athletes, any kind of, especially racket sports, I'm saying, because of there was a study which was done in for racket sport players. Tennis players have denser bone density when it comes to their dominant side of it. For example, if a tennis player is right arm dominated, righty, or as in Indians call it as righty, so if a tennis player is right arm dominated, so their right side of bone density, especially the lower limb, upper limb, will have much more denser bone density as compared to the left. Just an example of how mechanical loading improves the bone density over a period of time. Okay. So bone adaptations. Bone adaptations are primarily in consideration to the bone mineral density. Bone becomes stronger, bone becomes much more resistant to injury, and the best part of it is the fracture risk in bones gets very much reduced. This is a point of consideration considering exercise physiology towards the elder population, towards the geriatric population, towards the rehabilitative and injury prone athletes. You can consider them because this is something which will help them towards reducing the fracture risk by going ahead with good bone density improvement. Okay, now some of the factors which affects the bone adaptation is the training intensity. The higher the loading stimulates greater the adaptation. Okay, but it has to be backed with proper nutrition. Like for example, calcium and vitamin D are essential for bone rebuilding. Similarly, there are some hormones which affect the bone rebuilding in a manner which might be harmful even. For example, after a specific age, the estrogen will be counterproductive towards the bone health. At the same time, hormone like that of testosterone are beneficial for the bone health. So these are the hormonal affluence of it also. So that's the age and gender specific considerations also. I don't know how many of you have worked with geriatric population, but bone density is something which should be of greater prevalence when it comes to the older generation or the older population which you deal with. Skeletal strengthening.
Could I add something?
Yes, Omkar, please feel free to.
So basically, geriatric patients, the inguinal region is really prone for damage, and the psoas muscles, they are really deteriorating to such an extent.
Definitely. So, if we have to consider age and gender, especially in female older population, these are the few parameters which are of key priorities. In fact, one of the question which you need to consider as part of patient evaluation or patient understanding is their hormonal factors, what are their current hormonal challenges, what are their current mineral levels indicating towards the BMD also, the bone mineral density also, based on which your exercises also will have to be tailored to not harm them, but in fact benefit them. All right. Thank you for that, Omkar. Let's go towards the next, skeletal strengthening. So the adaptations are in such a way that there will be the bone density improvement, there will be the tendon strength which will be improved, the ligament adaptation which gets stronger with progressive loading, and the joint stability gets much more better. For example, your muscular support is in line with the joints. For example, your muscle adaptation are much more faster as compared to your connective tissue adaptations. So it's not that just because your muscle mass have increased or your muscle muscle belly have shown across some significance or improvement in the muscle mass, it doesn't mean that your entire system is there with you yet. Proper loading, especially isometric loading of your muscles, give a very great benefit towards the connective tissues also. This is just as important. Okay. So this is where progressive overload as a principle is something which you will have to consider. Who would like to briefly describe what is progressive overload? Anyone? I'm sure you would have come across this n number of times. Go ahead, Vihari.
So basically, it is gradually increasing the demands placed on the body so that it will try to adapt and improve.
Perfect. In addition to that, if it goes towards the negative side, that means too much too soon, the risk of injury increases. So the healthy perspective is what Vihari mentioned, that it should be a gradual increment of mechanical load or stress over a period of time so that your body progressively adapts over it. And this is how your skeletal strengthening, even muscular strengthening, gets applied. So here's an activity which I will want you all to do. In fact, once again, I have kind of given you the input in the next slide also, but this is an activity which I will want you all to do. Okay. You can think about it. We will start the next session with this, and then probably we will build it up from there. So a bodybuilder and an endurance athlete, two different goals obviously they have. What would be the primary goal of a bodybuilder? What do you think?
To increase the muscle size.
Yes, larger muscle mass, bigger muscle mass, aesthetically pleasing and evident muscle mass. Yes, correct. What about an endurance athlete?
Increase VO2 max.
Great, great. Aerobic efficiency to be improved, the body's oxygen utilization to be improved. So those would be the primary goals. And accordingly, you can start thinking about the rest also. What would be the training style? What are the type of muscle fibers to each of them? We already looked into this hypertrophy type, so that each of these aspect, metabolic pathways, to your extent, to your knowledge, you put in those inputs, and then we will have a discussion in on this tomorrow, and then we'll start off from there. Okay. All right. I hope everybody's with me on that. This will be visible to you on your virtual campus, slide number 29 we are talking about. Okay. And there is a cheat code for you all also on the next slide. So please make sure that you do it after referring the next slide also. Okay. Now let's get back towards the endocrine system, how the endocrine system's acute response towards exercises. So just as how we have been speaking about how the muscles, how bones, the chronic adaptations, the acute responses, similarly, let's try and understand that exercise does activate the endocrine system also immediately. It is because of these hormones in itself that the body's increased demands are now met. You understand increased demands, right? All of a sudden, your demand in terms of muscle requiring more oxygen, muscle requiring more, blood circulation. All these will have to be accordingly managed, and hormones will have to be triggered in that response. So, first and foremost, try and understand that hormones, what are their benefit for? Hormones help the muscles in such a way that the energy availability could be activated in. It provides, the right stimulus so that the circulation is improved. And while we focus in on all this, there are few hormones which you need to keep an eye out on. Any hormone which comes to your mind which gets activated during exercise? Let me give you the,
Testosterone.
yes, testosterone, the common or the most talked about. I'll give you an example of the one which we already spoke about, that is GH, growth hormone. Any other hormones?
Catecholamines.
Cortisol.
Great, perfect. Catecholamines. Cortisol is another major point of discussion. Great. And one more hormone which is very commonly
Insulin.
insulin. Okay. Something else?
IGF.
IGF. Okay, great.
Stress hormone.
That is cortisol. Yes.
Yeah.
Endorphin.
Endorphins. Okay. Bit more specific. I'm looking for something which will activate flight or fight also.
Epinephrine.
Adrenaline also gets secreted, right?
Epinephrine and norepinephrine.
Yes, great. So adrenaline is another hormone also. So these are the hormones I'm
Dopamine is
just
also there.
for sure. Dopamine is also. So these are the few hormones I'm throwing it across as names so that you can get specific insights into these. And we will have a discussion in the next where we speak specifically about hormones, where we should be able to do an activity on it. Okay. Right. Now let's get towards the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So this is one of that complex system which is going to regulate your stress response, which is going to regulate the individual's energy metabolism and even immune function. Where do you think it's mentioned as immune function? Anyone? Any thoughts? Immunity, does it go high or go low when a person is starting off with exercise? Think it through from your client perspective, from your own perspective. A person just started off exercises and they have been doing rigorous activities because, you know, adrenal has kicked and they are quite quite active and quite enthusiastic to start off the exercise. They have been doing quite phenomenally well, but then how does their immunity respond to it? What do you think? Tell me this, is it high or does it go low?
Excessive training It may impair this.
Okay,
Moderate exercise can improve immune function.
correct. Yes, but the situation is in such a way that a person who is just starting off exercise, let's think about a very beginner individual who's just starting off exercise, as and when they start off with exercise which they are not even familiar with, which their body is not accustomed to, their body goes into a drive where their immunity falls first and then it catches on. So if I have to draw a graph, the first fewer days of starting the exercise, you know, their immunity would be, let's say, at a par over here. And as and when they start the exercise for the next few weeks, this is time, yeah, and the immunity over here. So for the next few weeks, their immunity would be dropping down. But then, as and when they stay consistent, their immunity climbs up and then it stabilizes. So this is primarily because the body over here considers this physiological stress as a foreign stress altogether, and your body as parallel. For example, there are already micro traumas happening in your muscle, your skeletal system, many other systems actually take it as a foreign stress, and in response to this your immunity drops, but within a span of say few weeks, depends upon subject to subject, I mean individual to individual, your immunity will climb up. But do you see the difference over here? If they stay consistent over a period of time, their immunity now climbs better than where it was before. So this is the benefit or the immunity defense which they gain. But the fact is, this is the initial starting curve or the initial training curve which they experience in the initial few weeks. Yes, Laksh.
So basically, sir, this also means the immune function also goes through a process of compensation in simple, right?
Yes, you can put it across in that words. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's walk further in. Now, role of cortisol. See, try and understand it from a simple perspective that cortisol will be beneficial, but at the same time, it is something which we need to consider it. So, for example, we usually speak about cortisol as what? A stress hormone? Cortisol. What are the benefits and disadvantages of cortisol? Let's start off from there. Anyone?
The inflammation causes gets.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Okay, Bharat, you were saying something? All right, Vihari, you had raised your hand. You can go ahead next.
The advantages might be it will increase the blood glucose availability, reduces
Mhm.
inflammation, but the disadvantages might be it is a catabolist. So
Correct.
it usually does muscle breakdown, reduces recovery at times, and also suppresses immune function as well because
Mm.
of fatigue.
Okay, great. So
Can I add that, sir?
go ahead, please.
Yes. So since it is a catabolist, it also helps in using the dead tissues to use their proteins to again build up, right?
Correct. So chronic cortisol will actively break down muscle proteins to use as energy. This is, although specific to a term, that is chronic cortisol. Chronic cortisol also can affect another major concern, which is your GH hormone will get shunted with chronic cortisol in your stream, in your bloodstream. And there is a fat deposition actually starting to happen with chronic cortisol. All this happens in, once again, remember, it's a chronic situation which comes into play. But the thing is, this is where we need to train the athlete or the individual for specific duration and for specific days of the week. It should never lead to an overtraining as a syndrome where the problem goes towards the cortisol affecting the body in a negative manner. So everything which you're reading over here as role of cortisol is all towards the positive side of it. But highlighting the fact, as Lakshan Bihari rightly did, is knowing that this has a catabolism involved when it comes to cortisol that is relevant to chronic cortisol in the play. Okay, so we need to keep the exercise at a lower intensity. We need to keep the exercise when it comes to specific to the individual, specific to the athlete. How do we train it so that the cortisol increase is always kept in mind? It has to be a minor cortisol increase. Okay, and this will be detrimental for us to understand if your athlete is not been adapting and instead they are showing immunity suppression, they are showing fatigue, they are showing instead of the positives which we spoke of, that is your muscle hypertrophy, your bone remodeling, etc., etc. If it is going towards the negative of a spectrum, probably this might be a primary reason that cortisol could be towards the harmful effect. Right, VRE, correct. Okay, so just highlighting cortisol, its benefits and its disadvantage. Although disadvantage is when it comes to chronic, as we already mentioned. So now let's speak about testosterone. Okay, so testosterone is also called as the anabolic hormone, right? Now, it will be useful for us in the same line of discussion that it will provide protein synthesis, it will help with muscle repair, it will improve and support the neuromuscular function, and this is something which the athletes really need when it comes towards the benefit or the exercise impact which has to fall on them. Okay, so how do we manage these is basically enabling resistance training with specific amount of loads so that the testosterone increment is visible, is possible for them. Giving appropriate rest intervals, sometimes it could be short, sometimes it could be long, depending upon the need of the sport, depending upon the need of the activity which they are engaged with, and including compound movements. Compound movements are very much known to enhance testosterone's release. Yeah, so these kind of engagement with the athlete or with the client helps get the testosterone and also the GH going into play. Once again, GH is a very helpful tool when it comes to tissue repair post exercise. With proper rest and recovery and good amount of GH in the bloodstream, the athlete or the individual can really cope up well. Okay, coming back, adding on to the GH perspective, GH, on the contrary to the cortisol which we spoke about, will help and regulate fat metabolism. So if you train it properly, for especially now I'm talking about general population specifically, if you train it properly and get lifestyle modifications into consideration for your clients, for your general fitness clients, they should be able to balance the cortisol, and proper training helps them to improve upon GH, which will first of all eliminate further deposition of fat, and GH helping towards the fat metabolism in itself also. Now coming back to the athlete specific, GH is helpful towards the tissue growth repair. The connective tissues will really appreciate GH is present in the bloodstream, and that is why we need to mechanically load them with high intensity workouts, interval training, and these will help them with improving on the GH along with the testosterone also. So there will be a question. I'm just putting this across on the slide, but there will be a specific case study which I will want you all to actively engage with. This will be there as an assignment in your virtual campus. In the coming week, it will be uploaded in, where we will be looking into a case study of basketball players who are in a tournament phase and undergoing high training loads with obviously limited rest periods because they are on season and they are really geared up for. So what are the hormonal monitoring which will be needed, what are the different blood tests which will be needed? All this will be just mentioned it out. Once we complete our session today and tomorrow, this will be uploaded to you in the live assignment session. Okay, all right, with me on this, everyone? Okay. So now let's summarize it. The endocrine acute responses. The HPA axis, which we spoke about, is going to be useful to regulate the cortisol release. And if we train it properly, the acute cortisol release is still fine, and this will be beneficial to us. The only thing is we need to train properly so that a chronic cortisol doesn't show up in the individual or the athlete's case. Okay, cortisol is helpful as long as it is in the acute phase of it. And in addition to cortisol, testosterone and GH are very useful when it comes to the muscle repair, when it comes to the growth in terms of tissues, in terms of system rebuilding, system remodeling, and also from a general client or a general population perspective, the fat metabolism perspective is also benefited out with testosterone and GH. Okay, now the same point which we just mentioned in terms of cortisol, acute hormonal surges are subjective to your exercise type, to the exercise intensity, and your rest periods before reloading them. So, once again, highlighting the fact that your approach toward exercise will have to be trained specifically and subjectively towards the client which you have in mind. Okay. Yep. So, what adaptations do we look at when it comes to the endocrine adaptations over a prolonged type of training which you have been giving? So, regular training is going to help the body in such a way that there will be efficiency, there will be resilience, and most importantly, the chronic adaptations are going to help with good amount of recovery and performance and overall health. For example, the time required for a beginner or a rookie when it comes towards exercises is not going to be the same amount of time required by an elite athlete or a professional athlete when it comes towards the time of rest and recovery. Both of them will have very drastic amount of difference when it comes towards the amount of time required for the rest and recovery of each of their systems, because the hormonal load has been very much amplituded in such a way that the adaptation has grown up for the elite athlete. Adaptation has come up really well for the professional athlete as compared to a beginner or a rookie in the exercise perspective. Okay. All right. Training adaptations in hormone sensitivity. Okay. All right. So resistance training is a quick question before I get towards this. What is androgen receptor sensitivity? How many of you know what is androgen receptor sensitivity? Anyone? Anyone? Have you heard of this term before? Yes, Vihari, go ahead. Feel free to.
It is usually how our body responds to the cells, such as the testosterone, the hormones which it can receive. So how
Mm,
muscles responds to better to like testosterone like that.
mm. Okay. Okay. So, think about it in this way that there are lock and key mechanisms. Okay, so how effectively your cell will respond to the anabolic hormones which are available. A good example which Vihari gave us about testosterone. So if you have a high testosterone level but your body cannot efficiently use this to build muscle, to burn fat, or to recover, then your receptors are desensitized. But over here we are speaking about sensitized receptors or sensitive androgen receptors. This is our byproduct of resistance training, once again on a prolonged period. This will be beneficial. How? This is one of the reason why I gave the example of an elite athlete to a beginner in the exercise perspective. An elite athlete will have androgen receptor sensitivity, which will lead towards improved strength gains. Got it? Similarly, endurance training is going to improve insulin and cortisol regulation. I believe few of you gave an example of insulin and how it is helpful. Exercises help towards the insulin regulation, cortisol regulation. So that is what the approach is primarily with endurance training, improving towards that and better energy metabolism as a byproduct of it. Okay. All right. Any questions still here? Any doubts? Anyone? Anyone? Any questions? Any doubts? Great. Let's take in a quick break. Let's come back in and then we will push for the next few minutes and then we will be able to close it up also. All right, it's already 5:10. Another 15 minutes, or would you like to push it for 20?
15 minutes or two.
All right, great.
20.
All right, okay.
Harry, the sooner we start, the sooner we can finish with Harry, please.
Okay, done. 15 is
No
good.
worries, no worries. Let's take a 20-minute break. It's already 5:10. Let's start off at 5:30 and then we will resume back, okay? All right, you guys can continue to be on the meeting. We'll start off at 5:30. Let's start off with the next one, which is 5.2. We will start speaking about overtraining syndrome. Have any one of you come across this before for your patient, for your client, for your athlete? Anyone? Is this a familiar topic, terminology, or is this something which you have? Okay, great. Would be happy to hear from you, Tracy. What was your experience with this OTS scenario?
So it was one of my clients in my clinic, he's a football player. So
Tracy, I'm sorry. Can I ask you to come a bit more closer to the device, your mic, and then speak up? Your voice is a bit faint.
am I audible?
Yeah, it is a bit better, yes.
Yeah, so I had a client before, he's a football player. So basically, he was training in his gym. He was overloading his protein. Basically, he's putting up more protein. So basically, he got a due to overloading or due to doing progressive overloading exercises, he got a so
Okay.
his tenure is one thing. That's basically.
Okay. So did you help in the recovery process? Were you part of the recovery process?
Yes, we did a recovery session. We did his whatever loadings he was doing, we decreased the loading and then we started recovering his issues and engaging his muscles, surrounding the muscles.
Okay, awesome. How much time did he take to bounce back?
So basically, he took almost 2 to 3 weeks completely to reduce his pain, to reduce his pain. But still, he has slight pain of like 0 to 10, 1 or 2, a slight discomfort. This tending of the pain usually takes a lot more time to come down, basically. And he's still training, but the training is going on, the strength training is good.
Okay, all right. Good. Thanks for sharing that, Prissy. So, nobody else have a first-hand experience with OTS? All right. Okay. So let me just go ahead, Laksh. I'd be happy to hear from you as well.
Yeah, so sir, I was training an 100-meter hurdler athlete. So means what we came across was there was persistent, means there was always, whenever we started sprinting or whenever we sprinted, there was always means a pull in the hamstring, either left or right. Means it was continuously, whenever, means we had to stop and start because of that. And also there was very less sleep that the athlete was getting. And also appetite loss again. There was, luckily there was no mood disturbances, but surely there was decline in performance, in the overall performance decline, because we were never able to gradually progress anything.
Okay.
In some, the strength part, the athlete was quite good. The athlete never got injured or never got experienced a niggle while doing strength training, but it was always during the sprinting part. So there were some biomechanical inefficiencies that were there. But yeah, that when we got a sufficient amount of rest, we took a break for, means at least 2 weeks, which extended over a month. We did good rehab. We could just rehab everything. And after that, we were able to get into sprinting again without a lot of niggles. There were niggles, but there wasn't a major injury which costed more game time after that.
Okay.
So that was something, I think that was overtraining on some part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably might also have a bit involvement of biomechanical evaluation with a particular activity, because you mentioned, no, for the specific activity he mentioned
Right.
the pain. So yeah, but overtraining also seems to be a case over here. So
Right.
awesome. Thanks for sharing, Laksh. So let's try and summarize it. So basically, what is OTS, or overtraining syndrome in simple words, is it is basically a neuroendocrine condition where an athlete's physical and psychological stress is going to exceed their body's capacity to recover. That's the base idea. Now, this usually happens where there is excessive training, where there is not enough amount of rest, where then there is some hormonal disruption, where there is not enough nutritional backing up, which leads to OTS. So, OTS is a scenario which is the peak. That means OTS doesn't settle in over a month or even two. OTS is something which occurs over a peak, occurs over months, and probably even some year of training with a particular lag, which leads to this OTS to settle in. Usual signs and symptoms for you as a coach, which you need to be on the lookout for, is they consistently complain of soreness. Now, this soreness is unlike the muscle soreness, which is resulting from, overtraining, or, hypertrophic trigger point, which is micro trauma or micro tear in the muscles. There is unexplained soreness. and that too not over a day, over weeks. You have been noticing this leading to soreness, leading to performance decline gradually. So a track and field athlete who have been performing well for a specific let's say 400-meter sprint, he have been performing it in x amount of time, you have started noticing that it has now become x minus fewer this. So that means he has been taking, I'm sorry, x plus fewer seconds. So he has been taking more time to achieve in that 400-meter now, otherwise which he was able to complete it easily with no problem. I don't know how many of you have experienced this with your athlete, that they have expressed or they have showcased mood disturbances to you. How many of you have been on the receiving end of this? Mood disturbances, have they expressed it or vented it out on you? Anyone? Any of the coaches who have first hand dealt with athletes, especially in team sport trainings? No, this is a very common thing. You will experience the mood disturbances quite commonly. So yes, just like how Tracy also gave a thumbs up now. So similarly, there might be cases where you would experience these mood disturbances, where the athlete themselves, when upon inquiry, they will say that I have, just as Laksh mentioned, that the appetite loss is there. Sometimes the athletes would say that my sleep is not adequate. If it is adequate, my quality of the sleep is not that great. So as and when they mention these out, it is time for you to consider, is it OTS? So if it is OTS, there are fewer things which you can consider. And so it starts with few tests, few methods by which you can analyze, hey, is it going towards OTS or is it full-fledged OTS already? There are few hormonal markers which you can test. For example, testosterone. How much is the athlete's testosterone? Has it reduced already? Cortisol at rest. Okay, so that means probably after a day of rest, you can check in on their cortisol. If the cortisol is still on the elevated side, you can consider this. Their GH, growth hormone, is haywire. Usually we suggest this best out of 3, so that you can accordingly check in the most appropriate results. So you can test it out after a rest day at a particular time frequently, so that you can get a clarity in on this. What is circadian rhythm? What do you guys understand by this?
Cycle.
Anyone?
It's a biological clock.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Would you like to make it into a sentence? Anyone?
So it's like a biological clock. A body repetition just takes recovery.
Okay.
Mainly during the sleep.
It is the sleep and wake cycle, the digestion, the hormone releases.
Okay, great, perfect. So basically, good inputs there, Varun Bharat. The idea is that this is your internal clock or the biological clock. This is more or less the master controller for all your training adaptations, your athletic performance, even your immune health. Okay, so basically if we read much into the neuroscience of it, we understand that a particular part of the brain called as SCN, there is some full form for it, suprachiasmatic nucleus or something like that, where this part of the brain is what synchronizes your whole body's cycle. This is primarily in line with the daylight or the sunlight which you expose yourself to. Your body gets tuned to that. So, for example, athletes who travel from, let's say, India to US, for them there is a time of rest and recovery for a span of, say, 1 week, so that their circadian rhythm settles in their body, adjusts to the new geographical location, everything, the sleep cycle, everything starts falling into the right place. Okay, all right. So in OTS, many a times we see that poor sleep and circadian rhythm disturbances come in. For example, the athlete might say, I feel sleepy usually by 10, but my actual sleep kicks in at 2. So I sleep at 2 o'clock at night, 2 a.m., and then because of which, I wake up late. So these kind of questions can help and understand if the OTS markers have already been reached. Yes, Omkar.
I think basically it is the optic chiasm which is in one.
Omkar, could you come a bit more closer to the mic and speak?
Hello, I'm audible now. Hello.
Yes, yes, a bit better. Yes.
I'll just type it here. Optic chiasm and
Okay, okay.
something.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, something related to that.
Yes. So that's the reason why the circadian rhythm is of priority. So the highlight is, consider this, that's the internal 24-hour biological clock, which is the master controller. So that needs to be in place. And when you consider any of these pointers which we looked at in combination, one after the other coming in, then you should consider OTS related tests. And when I say test, in the following slides, we will notice that how can we do this? How can we guide the athlete to do this? All right. So while we also speak about this is a good time for us to consider as future SNC coaches that how can we prevent OTS to settle in? Because as you heard from two of your batchmates, that if at all a full-fledged OTS settles in, this is not going to let the client or let your athlete lose in a span of say 3 weeks or 4 weeks. It will take a month or minimum of a couple of months to let the client or the athlete get back to his or her best of the states again. So, what can we do to prevent OTS in the first place? Periodized training. I hope you all know what is periodized training. A proper micro, macro cycles where you have structured training protocols in place, so it avoids overtraining. It avoids areas where you train more one week, the other week you have not even trained. All these are biological factors to guide an athlete towards OTS. Checking in on their nutrition and sleep management, this is a fact which we need to understand. Some of you already might be working with athletes who have proper sports nutritionists, sports dietitians, and some of them already might be in a place where a facility where all of these are individually contributed to the athlete. So if they have that in addition to you as a coach, that is well and good. Otherwise, you who will be trained and taught in each of these subjects, you need to keep an overview or keep have an overlook into each of these parameters. Because why? Tomorrow the performance is going to get affected and you will be asked, hey, why did the performance get affected? And OTS is something which you will have to keep into consideration rather than just training in from just a strengthening and conditioning perspective. Psychological support is another major factor. Many a times, athletes main problem is that they will be too shy to mention out anything, or you know many of the time the coaches are not approachable. I don't know how many of these cases would be with the students over here, but I would encourage each of you to be good, approachable SNC coaches into the future so that they can come up to you and talk to you regarding their condition. Sometimes it could be as simple as that something went wrong with them during that particular day. Sometimes it could be as severe as something is going wrong with the athlete's hometown or home place or at home. So when you understand this, you can accordingly, cut them some slack and you can guide them on. Okay. Now let's look into a particular graph which is going to help you understand this a bit more better. Okay, so the first and foremost is, see, if you look at this graph, I hope this is visible to you all. Okay, so there is something called as overtraining, which we will be speaking about, or the overreaching where there is the green section which we are looking at over here. Okay, so first and foremost, if there is adequate amount of recovery, if there is adequate amount of nutrition, fatigue is going to help them to gain towards the best possible area, which is the overreaching phase. Okay, but in the absence of adequate recovery, in the absence of adequate nutrition, the overtraining could occur in such a way that there would be a drop down of their performance over a prolonged period. So you see, in overreaching, it's healthy. Overreaching is where you should lead the athlete towards. That is where they should stop. In fact, this is where, from a theoretical perspective, this is where we should draw a line. But if we cross overreaching, we are leading towards overtraining. Okay, now this becomes extreme. This becomes in such a way that the overtraining syndrome settles in, where there is systematic inflammation, there is CNS, central nervous system effects showing up for the athlete. There could be mood swings, as we spoke about. Sometimes even depression could settle in, and some cases leads to even inflammation, like aches and pains, sometimes even fever to show up, and then all these ultimately affecting the athlete's overall performance. So try and understand in this way that it's not only physiological, biochemical, immunological, but it's also a psychological approach which we will have to keep in mind, so that the athlete's training with adequate rest, with adequate nutrition, with adequate amount of loading, which we spoke of previous slides, would lead them to overreaching, which is healthy, which is needed. But the moment you cross that, it is the performance which is drastically going to drop down. This is the unhealthy or the unwanted situation which we should avoid in from. Okay. All right. We'll skip this. Okay, so a couple of objectives which we will look at over here is, now, whether it is a sport or a lifestyle factor like sleep, nutrition. I'm trying to combine both the athletic and the general population perspective in over here. Okay, so regardless of the sport, regardless of the lifestyle factors of the individual, like sleep or nutrition, stress management, or whatever, these are all critical to maintaining the hormonal balance. And as we've been looking into it, hormonal balance is essential. So basically, in conclusion, a chronic hormonal adaptation are central towards the long-term athletic success. If you are speaking from a general client perspective, the hormonal adaptations are central to a long-time health or long-time fitness of the individual also. Okay, so by improving this hormonal sensitivity, athletes or individuals can train more efficiently, can recover more efficiently. But however, without proper recovery or without proper monitoring, which you have a look in over them, they risk entering into the OTS territory, overtraining syndrome territory. So what should be our goal as future SNC coaches, future trainers, or even athletes? Your objective is to create training programs which are balancing intensity with rest, balancing workouts with emotional connect with the individual, support hormonal health through nutrition, through sleep, encouraging them towards these healthy habits, and regularly, this is the most important, regularly assess their progress, so that you can ensure that they are having performance improvements in a sustainable manner. Okay. All right, with me till here? Okay. We will quickly look at a few assessment methods also. Okay, so all this while we spoke about musculoskeletal system, the different exercise physiological approach towards endocrinal and musculoskeletal system. We understood OTS as a factor because that is another key reason why many athletes many a times drop out, and many of the time coaches are insensitive to. But we need to have an idea how to assess the musculoskeletal, assess the endocrinal health, so that we can continuously keep making modifications or training adjustments so that it is customized to the ever evolving demands of the athlete. Yeah, the primary objective being that we are supporting the long term health and the athlete longevity. So how do we do that? Is primarily with a couple of tests. First is musculoskeletal testing protocols. So I'm just going to leave it open for the already working professionals in over here so that you can give me a couple of examples. I have just jotted down two examples of each so that it is just read it loud and understand kind of examples, but you can keep adding on to it in addition to what is written out over here, something which you have been doing, for example. So for strength test, what is your choice of test? 1RM is one type of test which we can do to analyze power. Any other type of test which you have been doing for strength? Anyone?
So there's a isokinetic testing which we do with a dynamometer. It's a device which we use for the particular muscle strength test, or for the strength testing.
Okay, sorry, I didn't get that part where you said isokinetic.
Isokinetic testing.
Isokinetic testing.
Yeah, so it is a strength testing. Basically, we use a dynamometry, which is a device.
Okay, using dynamometry.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Perfect, good, great. Any other example? Anyone?
IMTP with performance.
Great, great. Perfect. We will look into flexibility and ROM, sit and reach test, a very common basic test. All right. Then there are some mobility assessments which physios can do, like shoulder, hip, individual joint specific ROM exercises, and assessments can be given in any other test which you have been trying out or which you have been doing for your athletes, considering flexibility and range of motion.
Elise, Thomas, Faber, and please.
Bharat, a bit more closer to the mic, please.
Elise, Faber, Thomas, please.
Great, great, great. Tracy would appreciate each of these terms, very, injury specific, rehab specific ones. Good. Let's go towards the next, endurance and fatigue. There are the FMS, which is most commonly used, functional movement screens, which screening test, which we give across to most of the athletes. Any other endurance and fatigue related testings? Anyone?
Kilometer tests, tests.
Perfect. Yeah. So sprint test is one of the approach. Somebody wrote it down. Deep test. Okay, great. Yeah. So sprint test of different sorts can be given across to the athletes also, so that they can try out over here. Okay. So let's further down towards the next, which is the hormone sampling techniques. Okay. So blood test. Before I mention this out, let me just say that while we are speaking about this, I'm not making you a phlebotomist. I'm not asking you to get into the laboratory, pick up needles and vials and go to the athlete to draw samples, blood samples, and start testing it out. No, I'm not advising you and guiding you toward that. But why are we speaking about these different tests? Musculoskeletal obviously is in your domain, the one which we looked at before. But the fewer slides which we are going to look at now is specific to the different type of tests which are most commonly used. So each team usually have their own doctors, or each of the centers. Yeah, of course. So that's what. So each of these centers have a physician, have a doctor who are the best people who can advise the athlete towards this. But why are we going to discuss about these are so that you as a coach can understand when these, colleagues of yours, when these sports physicians or sports docs speak about these, you will not be starstruck and awestruck looking at the sky thinking about what happened really over here, but you would have some basic idea, basic information about what are these tests, what are the common uh, tests which are used, and what are these really in. So just throwing across basic, I'm not covering up the majority, but the basic and the most commonly used ones so that you can get an idea of. So first and foremost, for hormone sampling testing, blood test is the gold standard. Okay, because primarily it is the least fluctuating, and it is very specifically appropriate when it comes to athlete also. So that's why blood test is the gold standard, especially for hormonal tests like testosterone, cortisol, and GH. Yeah. Some of the most common blood tests are, for example, serum cortisol test. I'll just mention out what each of these tests really do in few words so that you can understand. Serum cortisol test is to understand the cortisol levels in the blood. Serum testosterone test is to understand the total testosterone and the free testosterone available in the blood. The free testosterone test gives across one more further step to understand the active fraction of testosterone, that means unbound testosterone in the blood. Then there is the serum GH, which analyzes the measuring, which analyzes the circulating GH in the bloodstream. Then there is insulin-like growth factor hormone, which we looked at before, the IGF-1 test, to understand the IGF's availability. And because IGF directly influences the release and the effect of GH, it will also help us to understand the GH's activity, growth hormones activity over a period of time. Then the other hormones like that of TSH. TSH stands for what? Anybody over here? Omkar, maybe you can express TSH.
Thyroid stimulating hormone.
Thyroid.
T3 and T4 as well then. Would you like to?
Mm, not exactly. I might love that.
Okay, all right. So TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. T3,
One is thyroxine. I don't know about
T4 is thyroxine. Brilliant. T4 is thyroxine. T3 is the uh, okay, even you given me into a pickle. One sec. Let me just
Triglyceride.
no, it's triiodothyronin. Yes, I'm correct. Yes, triiodothyronin, which is basically the active form. T3 is the active form. T4 is the storage form, as we otherwise call. Okay, so these are the thyroid panel test which we do for the blood test. And then there are other few more. For example, the ACTH to understand the adrenal response. Then there is the DHA test, which is for adrenal function, and etc. etc. So these are the blood hormone sampling test which we will speak about. We'll just quickly cover up the other two also before we wrap it up. Second is saliva test. Saliva test is just as the word suggests, which will be utilizing the athlete's saliva for the testing. This is again very non-invasive, because of which it has started becoming popular in track and field and other field related team sport like football and others. And there are few very commonly and important tests over here which is done. For example, the DHEA test, as I just mentioned about, but this would be salivary DHEA test, which will give an insight into the adrenal health. Then there is the alpha amylase test. I'm not quite sure. This is very commonly used to understand the stress markers, which is in regard to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system activation. Okay, and then this is the last one, which is the urine test. Okay, now out of the other two which we spoke of, this is the least common, but this is helpful for detecting few long-term hormonal shifts. So there might be cases where the team physician might suggest blood test and urine test also, so that, for example, they can understand if there is any cortisol, like for example, identified in the urinary free cortisol test to understand the cumulative cortisol output. That's what it does. Then there is the catecholamines, for example, epinephrine or epinephrine. How much is that? Which is again related to stress and adrenal activities. And then you have the testosterone test also, which is again a very precise calculation which it gives across. Okay, so there are these different tests which can be utilized or which can be suggested to an athlete or a team of athletes even. So what I've done is I've given across over here a basic overview, not to confuse you at the same time, bore you with too many biochemical jargons, but this is something which you can just have a quick look in and understand about each of these aspects. Okay. All right. Perfect. So tomorrow we will start off with the scenario which I wanted you all to look at. And then regarding the, you tell me, what was it about? Do you remember? Guys, anyone remembers?
It was the tabular column.
You're correct on that, no doubt. Anyone? Okay, all right.
A bodybuilder versus an endurance sport athlete.
Correct. Bingo. Now would be a good time for me to use the emojis. Great job. Okay, so have a look through your virtual campus, prepare in, and then we will be having a discussion in on that tomorrow, and then we will start off from there, and then we'll cover up the rest. Okay, perfect. Any questions, any doubts, anyone, before we wrap it up for the day?